Welcome back, everybody, to the Almost Sideways podcast. We're so glad you are joining us. This is episode 111. We are recording this Sunday, January 31st, 2021 at about 3 p.m. Pacific time. I am your host, Terry Plucknett. Joining me, as always, are Todd Plucknett, Zach Saltz, and Adam Daly. Hey, Adam.
Hey, guys. What's going on?
How's it going? Yeah, so this is a kind of a special thing that we're doing. This is the first time that we are also recording video for our podcast, a regular podcast episode, because it is a very special episode as we're going over our top 10 of 2020. And this is kind of cool. We're all kind of in our own boxes here. So if you're listening on a regular podcast channel, you're not seeing anything. It'll look exactly the same as normal. It'll sound exactly the same as normal. If you are watching us on YouTube, you actually get to see our faces and see us talking, which is pretty cool. So yeah. How's it going, everybody?
It's good. It's good.
Excellent.
This is exciting.
Normal.
Wow.
It was weird to actually have to worry about what was behind me this time. I've never have had to worry about that before. Make sure you subscribe, rate, review. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe and like there. Oh, wow, look at that. We've even got a screen that pops up here. Yeah, so you can find us on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on Stitcher, on Pandora. I didn't have to remember it this time because it's on the screen. Yay! And then also make sure you find us on YouTube. Just subscribe everywhere. Just subscribe to all of them. It helps us out. It gives us a lot more opportunities for clicks. So make sure you do that. Todd, what are you drinking?
I am going back to my normal South Shot small batch bourbon whiskey. Closing the year out right.
Very nice, very nice. Adam, how about you?
I'm going. There's a beverage here, man. This is a White Russian and one of those workout shaker cans.
Oh, I thought you fed your child that. Looks like
No, not that bad. Yeah.
Zach, what do you have?
So I got this as a free beverage for having to wait for sushi for an hour on Friday night. Don't order sushi on Friday nights, people. This is called Hana Owaka sparkling flower. I didn't know it was alcoholic until I started drinking it. So it's awesome, man.
Nice.
3 stars. Would recommend.
Very nice.
Nice pink drink.
Well, like you just opened it, though. I mean, how?
There was another one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sure. Okay. No,
there was a tasting last night.
Yeah.
It's a tasting.
All right. Well, I went to the brewery and I was gonna get a growler filled, but instead I was like we're celebrating 2020, if that's even the right word, memorializing it, you could almost say. And I had to come up with something good, so I found this beer. This is I think it's out of San Diego. Yeah, out of San Diego, California, and it is a double IPA. Hazy, and it is called 2020. Well, that was fun, said no one.
Nice.
So
good stuff, man.
I felt like it was appropriate for the timing.
Cheers.
Looks like it uses the same font as the font of Promising Young Woman.
It's quite possible. All right. Well, we're just going to hop right into this. Usually we reveal our top 10 of the year a little sooner than we are doing right now. However, this is a weird year, and especially with the fact that we still have another month before the Oscar window is closed, and Oscars aren't until the end of April, and theaters are still closed. There's a lot of movies that even now that none of us have seen that are 2020 movies that we are hoping, or we've heard great things about, things like Nomadland and Minari and The Father, that we haven't had a chance to see yet. Hopefully at some point soon we will. But we wanted to put this list out there now, after we gave ourselves an extra month to get caught up on some things. So we're going to talk about our top movies of 2020. I know we are doing something that a lot of critics are doing, but not all are doing, and still calling it movies released in 2020, where I know some are looking at it in terms of Oscar window and extending it through the end of February. That would be called the wrong way to do it. We're doing it the right way and keeping it to the year So this is movies released during 2020, and that's what we're going to be looking at. So to start with, we are going to start by revealing our bottom 5, and we'll just go around and go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then we'll go through our top 10. And do we want to do honorable mention before we reveal the top 10 or after? I'm thinking after.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
What's the over under? We kind of we always put this out there too. What's the over under for overlap? Just so we have it on record.
6.5, baby. I'm taking the over.
4.
I'll go 3.5. It's going under that.
I'm
saying any overlap, right? Any overlap.
Any overlap.
Last year there was like 9.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm saying. I'm going 8. I'm going over under 8, or I'll go 7.5.
Is this the Price is Right, where if you go too high you lose?
Okay. Well, let's start this out, and we'll start in the top right and kind of work our way around. So we'll go Todd, Adam, me, Zach. Zach, you get a finish like you wanted to. So we'll go bottom 5 first. So Todd, give us your bottom 5 of 2020.
Okay, so I've seen 134 movies from 2020.
Damn, good grief, dude.
Thumbs up percentage is 52.98%. So my bottom 5 would be my number 130 through my number 134. So my 5th worst movie of the year was Borat's subsequent movie film, because it was just an atrocity, and it's not really even a movie, and it takes all the things about Sacha Baron Cohen that we don't like, and it expands upon them. Terrible movie.
I disagree.
Number 4 is Happiest Season, which we reviewed on the podcast. Just a stupid, badly written Hallmark movie with a really cool cast. Number 3 is The Jesus Rolls, which I had to watch it 3 different times because I kept falling asleep. It's just, it's reprehensible how bad this movie is. Number 2 is The Prom, which is just the Hollywood musicals at its absolute worst. I reviewed that on the podcast as well. And number 1 worst movie of the year is one of the first movies I saw in 2020, and it remained there. It is The Last Thing He Wanted, the Dee Rees movie, and I feel like I should give it another chance, but I really don't want to.
Nice.
I understand that feeling.
Yeah.
All right. Adam, now I think you've already revealed this, but go ahead for the sake of this episode. Reveal your bottom 5.
Yeah, so I made a video for YouTube because I do that almost every year. I like to talk about my top 10 worst movies. But number 5, I'm going to go with Buddy Games, which was Josh Duhamel, whatever, how you say his last name. But that was his directorial debut, and it was just basically one of this kind of like Happy Madison, really like knockoff type of films. So it's really, really horrible. Like Nick Swartzen shows up, and it's just a bunch of guys doing vulgar humor, and it wasn't funny at all. Number 4 is he told you if he didn't get nominated for an Oscar, he was going to make a bad movie, and that's Hubie Halloween with Adam Sandler. It wasn't atrocious, but it's something that it just was not my humor. I can't see a grown man doing fart and puke jokes for 90 minutes anymore. It's just sad, especially after I've seen Uncut Gems so many times now. So number 3, I have Coffee and Kareem, another great cast with Ed Helms and Taraji P. Henson. It's another Netflix film, just little kids doing saying bad words. It's kind of reminded me of what was that, Bad Boy or Good Boys or whatever from the year before, but not as good at all. Or yeah, Good Boys was actually pretty decent. But number 2, I have one of my first screeners I ever got from Netflix. Now is The Holiday, where Emma Roberts shows up with Chris Hemsworth knockoff, and they just basically started to date each other during the holidays. And then the guy gets feelings for the girl, and it's typical romance cliches throughout the thing, and it's just uninteresting. And number 1 worst film is Artemis Fowl. No wonder Disney decided they're just going to drop this on Disney Plus, just under the radar, no promotion material, because it is horrible. So yeah, pretty bad top 5 movies for me anyway.
All right. It's my turn. All right, bottom 5. This first one might be a little controversial. I don't really care. My number 5 on my bottom 5 is Tenet.
Oh my
God!
Yeah,
shots fired.
I watched this for the first time this last week. I tried to do some catching up. I'm a huge Nolan fan. Like Inception was my number 1 of the 2010s, like the entire decade. Interstellar was okay. I could see what he was trying to do there, willing to give it another shot. Tenet, it felt like, I want to do these cool special effects. Well, what's the plot? Does it matter? We're going to have cool special effects. And there really doesn't feel like there is one. And whatever there is, you don't really care. The script is lousy. The story is non-existent. Yeah, some of the visuals are cool, but it's not really worth it at all. I'm willing to give Interstellar another chance. I don't know if I care enough to give Tenet another chance. So it's number 5 on my bottom 5. Oh, and I meant to say,
if you watched it in the theater, it would have been different.
That I agree completely. If I had seen it in the theater, I probably would have had a different experience, but I didn't, and so it sucked. I will say, these are the only 5 movies I gave under 2 stars to this year. So there you go. So that's kind of my bar there. Number 4 on my bottom 5 is The Lovebirds with Kumail Nanjiani and Issa Rae. Another one I was looking forward to, nowhere near as much as Tenet, but one I was looking forward to and just disappointed. It just fell flat. Wasn't fun at all. Number 3, She Dies Tomorrow. We reviewed this one.
Come on, man.
I had no idea what was going on, and again, it was like, I don't really care. It did nothing to make me care. It was a complete, what the hell is going on? Yeah, just bad. Number 2 is, I think, going to pop up on another list that Zach's about to read off. That's Desperados, the Nassim Pedrad, Lamorne Morris straight to Netflix movie that came out over the summer. It's pretty horrible. Yeah. You at least need to have connect and somewhat like the characters in some way, shape, or form to enjoy the movie. And number 1 is another straight to Netflix I watched, Mrs. Serial Killer. It was my first delve into Bollywood, and it's pretty horrible. It's about a woman, or it's about a guy who gets arrested for being a serial killer, and his wife decides to try and prove his innocence by performing copycat murders. And spoiler alert, he actually was guilty. So when he gets out, he continues to kill people. And it played it almost like a slapstick comedy at times. It was weird. So that's my bottom 5.
Wow, that's like 5 or 6 Netflix movies.
And Tenet.
Oh, yeah.
Desperados was the next one up from Borat. So
okay. All right, Zach.
Yeah, all these controversial takes, man. Like Borat, Tony Scott's number 1 movie, and Tenet. Well, I'm going to make my controversial take as my number 5 worst movie of the year. It's a movie that will get nominated for several Oscars, and maybe it wasn't that bad, but I'm really annoyed that it's getting all the love that it's getting, and that is Mank. I think Mank sucks. I mean, it was lifeless, dull, predictable, didn't really have anything new to offer, and I hate Gary Oldman, so it just for me was a mess. And there are certain other podcasts out there that I shall not mention that Todd knows about that love talking about Mank and talk about it all the freaking time, and I don't want to listen to the Mank podcast anymore. Okay, so let's move on. Number 4. I'm sorry, I have a little bit of irrational anger toward that movie. Number 4 is The Devil All the Time, which we reviewed on this podcast. Again, not a terrible movie, but one that had a lot of missed opportunities given the cast. I fell asleep multiple times during it. By the way, but me falling asleep is usually a good marker of a movie that's going to end up on the bottom end of my list. And inexplicably had Tom Holland as the greatest shot since Doc Holliday. So, just ignore it, trash it, bad movie. Number 3, we didn't talk about this movie on the podcast. I know Todd didn't like it. I didn't like it either. It is The Life Ahead, the supposedly Sophia Loren Oscar vehicle, which, if you look at the poster of it, you read this plot synopsis, it sounds kind of interesting, a remake of Madame Rosa, which is this really good 1970s movie. It is garbage. It is a stinker, man. It is so predictable, hokey, trite, cliche, everything you could think of, even though it's not in the English language. It's amazing. It's like they watched Hollywood movies or something. Number 2 is a movie that is also a controversial take. It might end up on Todd's Best of the Year list. I wouldn't be surprised. It is I'm Thinking of Ending Things, the Charlie Kaufman movie, which, it went over my head, okay? It's like what Tenet was for Terry, this movie is for me. It makes no sense. Someone, write a 300-page diatribe treatise looking at all the metaphors of it, and I will not read it. And the number 1 worst movie of the year, Terry already spoiled it for everybody. It is Desperados. If you want a terrible time at the movies, you want to feel terrible about yourself for having to endure something for 95 minutes that you'll never get back, go ahead and watch Desperados because it's genuinely terrible.
I mean, it's not even like awesomely bad. Like you
No,
can enjoy how bad it is.
It's
just
not a
pretty bad.
pleasurable experience. It's not a pleasurable experience at all. It's painful.
7 Netflix movies and 1 Disney Plus film.
Well, I mean, was there anything else to watch?
There was some decent stuff.
There was some stuff.
That's a good point.
I found some bad ones.
Yeah,
I like the fact that we have Netflix this year has committed to releasing a new Netflix original every week. I mean, at least we're going to make sure we have good content. I won't say good, but
none of us had to watch any of these movies 3 times like Todd did for the Jesus movie, right? I mean, that just sounds painful.
I know. I was looking forward to that too because I don't know that movie had been in the works for a long time, and he finally got it made, and it was just bad.
You just got to give up on it, man. It's like a hospital patient. You can't resuscitate that thing. Just call it, man.
Not gonna lie, it took me probably about 2.5 times to get all the way through Mank.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, several excursions was not worth it. Dead on arrival, man. Just call it. Put it in the body bag. Send it to the cellar. It's over.
I don't sign off on that take.
I mean, I still ended up giving it 3 stars because I appreciated what it was doing, but yeah, it took a while to actually dredge through it. Okay, so there's the bottom 5, and now it's time to get to the top 10, and then at the end of this whole thing, we will reveal our top 5 of our site for 2020 as well. So we'll have that coming up too. We'll go in the same order. So, Todd, number 10, best film of 2020.
Well, first, my blind spots so far. I saw, Nomadland, The Father, and Minari, along with Another Round, I think has potential to be on my list. Bloody Nose,
yeah.
Empty Pockets, Martin Eden, all of the Apple TV Plus movies, and News of the World. I need to see all of those, and none of those are going to be on this list because I haven't seen them. So, my number 10 is a documentary that is available on Showtime. It is Belushi, directed by R.J. Cutler, and it really snuck up on me more than any documentary in the last few years. It's a collection of previously unheard recordings of John Belushi from the people around him, which were interviews taken when they were writing an oral history book about him in 2005, and it gives you just fascinating footage of him and in his early years in comedy shops at Second City, on radio shows, and making his way up the ranks to be SNL king and the biggest movie star in the world. I have always liked Belushi, but this paints him as being this misunderstood genius who's getting bogged down by the pressure of his own fame and resorting to drugs and alcohol to cope and maintain his legacy. I only knew the basic details of his demise, but it's heartbreaking hearing accounts from Dan Aykroyd and others who saw signs of that coming, and they couldn't really do anything about it. It has a classic rise and fall documentary format, but it's better than the Robin Williams one. It's better than the Heath Ledger one. Those are just basically hagiographies. But this is a truly great movie, and there's a reason why they're making a narrative film about John Belushi. It's because he's a fascinating character, and he had a tragic story. Along with Love and Tosha, I think it's the best celebrity documentary since Cobain Montage of Heck. In a normal year, I probably would consider this not eligible, but it's 2020, so screw it. My number 10 is Belushi.
Very nice. Very nice.
Pick, man.
It's about John Belushi, not Jim, right?
Yes.
We're sure.
John.
Okay.
Yeah.
Although Jim is in the movie too.
Nice.
I'm sure he would be. So I forgot to mention before we started, so we're going to try something here so that we don't overlap talking about the same movies multiple times. If somebody brings up a movie on their top 10 and it's a movie that's going to come up on somebody else's top 10, we can interject, and so we only talk about the movie once instead of talking about it multiple times, just to try and keep the conversations from having to rehash the same ones over and over again. And we were trying to come up with a word. Did we decide on one?
Yeah, Merlot.
Merlot. Okay. I was trying to come up with a good almost famous word, and I couldn't think of anything. It could be Gestapo tactics. That'd be fun. Anyways, all right, Merlot. So as someone starts talking, as soon as they reveal, if someone says Merlot, that means it will be appearing on their list, and we're going to wait to table that discussion until it pops up. Okay, so that's that. That was Todd's number 10. Adam.
I still don't understand that rule, but let's do it, man. I'm excited.
Drink some of that pink drink. You'll understand.
I will.
Just
Okay.
all you need to know is if something comes up that
That you haven't
is-
talked about yet.
that you haven't
that's on
talked
your
about
list.
that's on your list and somebody
All right.
brings it up, just say
All right.
Merlot, and then
Like, I'm not
we'll talk
drinking
about-
any of that.
Belushi. No one had Belushi on their list then.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
No one else had Belushi. That's what
Have
that
you
just
guys
meant.
seen it?
No, that's on my list to watch.
Oh, that's unfortunate. It's on Showtime.
All right, Adam, number 10.
All right, so cover up some of my blind spots that I need to see. Obviously, The Father, Minari, and No Man Land. Black Bear was one with Aubrey Plaza. Baby Teeth. Baby Teeth is I believe it's an Australian film. I could be wrong, but Weathering with You, which is from the same creators of Your Name, so I gotta watch that one. And First Cow. That's the other one that I need to watch too. So there's probably some more. But yeah, that's what I wrote down. So my number 10 is a fantastic horror film that really gets that body horror going on. And that is a film directed by Brandon Cronenberg, and that is Possessor. This is a fascinating film that I absolutely loved. It has some of the best sound design and interesting plot and really gruesome in-your-face horror. And you're thinking about some of his father's work. Like I'm thinking like The Fly. It rarely resembles. Like you can definitely see his son really learned from his father's work, and he put a lot of his heart and soul into this film. It's a really interesting plot too, where you have these agents possess different people, and they go out and do these hits and these little missions, and there's a lot of really cool brutal moments in this film. I really enjoyed the performances from Andrea Riseborough and also Christopher Abbott, and then of course Sean Bean's in this movie, so he's probably most likely going to die at some point in the film, like he always does. But Possessor, man, this was some really cool, fascinating stuff, and there was some stuff that I wanted to look away, but I couldn't because I was just so in awe of what they were able to pull off, and I couldn't get this film out of my head. I wanted to make sure that I like movies maybe I gave a little higher rating, like a 4-star rating. I didn't want to. I dropped that out of my top 10 faster than I wanted to. I wanted to keep this in there because I think this film definitely needs to be seen, especially if you're a fan of some gross out in your face body horror. So Possessor for me, number 10.
Yeah, that's a good movie. I agree, and I thought it was most similar to Existence, the Cronenberg movie, and plus, I mean, it has Jennifer Jason Leigh in it as well, so there's that parallel.
So good cast in there too, man. Everybody brings their A game on this. Yeah, some of the
All
best sound design of the year too. So,
nice.
All
right. So my first blind spots, a lot of the same ones you guys have been saying. I didn't write anything down for that, but Nomadland, Minari, The Father are the main ones I want to make sure I still get a chance to see. Another one that you guys said. So Todd gave his stats at the beginning. I'll give mine to just show how insane Todd is. This was like a banner year for me. More films I've watched at this point for a year than ever before, and that is 68. Yes, that is half of what Todd watched for the entire year. So I've watched 68 2020 movies. I have my thumbs up percentage is 71%, so definitely more than Todd. Yeah. However, I will say, so I rank my movies on a scale of 100, and the way I see it is if it's an 80 or above, it's a 3-star movie. So my average for the year was 81.4. So that was my overall average, and so right around where it should be. So there's ones I liked a lot, ones that I didn't. So anyways, that's that. And then I had 10 4-star movies, which worked out nicely because we're doing a top 10. So with all that said, time to get to my top 10. And number 10 on my list is Wolfwalkers. This is the Apple TV Plus animated movie that probably will get nominated for Best Animated.
Yeah.
It is directed by Tom Moore and Ross Stewart, who are the people behind Song of the Sea and Secret of Kells, which got some notoriety when they came out. Secret of Kells was nominated for Best Animated as well. I haven't seen those. This is the first one I've seen, and it is just amazing, astounding, just beautiful film about this village and this girl who wants to be a hunter like her dad, her dad, who is voiced by one Sean Bean again, and the little girl looks just like Saoirse Ronan. I mean, I know it's an Irish thing, but for whatever reason, she seems to be modeled after her. So the main character, Robin, she goes out in the forest, and they're hunting wolves, and she finds the mythical wolf walkers. These humans who, when they fall asleep, they turn into wolves, and they can talk to the wolves. They control the wolves. They have special healing powers. It is such a cool movie that says a lot about where you fit in the world and stigma, and also just has a lot of heart to it. It's really suspenseful. It's beautifully drawn. It's definitely drawn animation, and it's awesome with that as well. Yeah. So that's my number 10, Wolfwalkers.
Such a good movie.
It's so good.
Yeah. That's a
seen
great
it.
one. It's a good
Apple
one.
TV Plus. Nobody
Apple
has
TV
it.
Plus. Yeah,
Just
I
missed
know.
out on my top 10. Just missed
It's
out.
like $4.99 a month, though. I mean, it's like the cheapest streaming service, and they've got a lot of great content on there.
Yeah.
I mean, not
All
as
right.
much as the other places.
Sure.
No, but the other places charge more than $4.99 a month. All right,
Sure.
Zach, number 10.
Okay, so I have a lot of the same blind spots as everybody. The only ones I would add are 63 Up.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Michael Abted. I don't know if that's ever going to be available to watch. And I still have yet to see Tenet. I don't know. I've heard so many bad things about it. I don't look forward to watching it, but I will at some point.
I gave it a positive review.
I know you liked it, Todd. There's a chance I'll like it just to be contrarian.
Todd, I think you liked it simply because you got to see it in the theaters. Like it was your return to theater movie.
True.
Yeah. All right, so I saw 75 movies this year. I gave thumbs up to 51 of them. And there are two movies this year that almost made me cry. Like, I got really close. Both of them are on my top 10 list, and one of them is my number 10 movie, which is also going to be the only documentary on my list. I hope it gets a documentary nomination at the Oscars this year, and that is Crip Camp, which is a movie that was released to Netflix earlier this summer, produced by Higher Ground Productions, Barack and Michelle Obama. They also produced my number 2 movie of last year, which was also a documentary called American Factory. This is an awesome documentary that profiles, it actually is sort of like almost 2 stories in one. The first part of the story profiles this summer camp called Camp Jened that existed primarily in the 60s and 70s. That was a camp for children with disabilities, teenagers with disabilities. And the second part of the story is how a lot of these campers grew up to be disability advocates. And they got a lot of their sort of advocacy and public policy sort of mindset through their experiences as teenagers at this camp, which was very kind of forward thinking in the sense of, hey, we should treat children with disabilities the same way as we treat children without disabilities. Like, let's just, have normal activities, have fun, let's have them, date each other and, play baseball and do all this normal summer camp things that they haven't been able to do. Really, really awesome documentary. I think it's profoundly moving in the sense that there's such a strong sense of solidarity, and it tells a story that frankly doesn't get oftentimes told. The disability rights movement in this country gets often ignored as a subset or completely different from the civil rights movement in this country. They talk about the Section 504 and Americans with Disabilities Act later in the movie. These people are heroic. It's an amazing underdog story that I think you'll be hard-pressed to watch and not be moved. So definitely the best documentary I saw this year. Crip Camp. Check it out.
Nice. I think we just, as Film Independent, you're getting those screeners just came out for your consideration for Crip Camp too. So yeah, I think that's a good solid chance to get a nomination too. One I've missed out on so far.
Barack and Michelle are 2-0 for Zach top 10 lists. So they're doing some great stuff at Higher Ground Productions.
Well, there you go. I'm sure they'll be happy to hear that.
I'm sure. They're listeners.
Higher Ground is Zach Saltz approved.
Yeah.
All right, Todd, number 9.
My number 9 is a movie directed by the RZA. It is Cutthroat City.
Wow, okay. Cool.
Which is on Netflix, Hoopla, and Spectrum. It takes place after Hurricane Katrina, where 4 friends who are living with basically nothing and are denied any help from FEMA So they kind of take it back from the government by robbing a casino, and then after that, they sort of escalate the danger in each one of their jobs, and it kind of becomes more about making a point than it is about actually making money. The movie has a killer cast: Ethan Hawke, Terrence Howard, Rob Morgan, who I feel like was in every 2020 movie, Wesley Snipes, and T.I. is the MVP of the movie. He is amazing, and I think he actually was good enough to be nominated. Shameik Moore from Dope, he is basically the main character, and he's fantastic as well. It's a movie that initially for me was surprising that it was good, and then just got more and more intense, and I actually felt it in the end. Cutthroat City, I have no problems putting in my top 10. It's my number 9.
Nice. I've heard about this movie. A lot of people spoke highly of it. That's cool.
Well, it's got a 4.8 on IMDb, which is just ludicrous.
Yeah, that's horrible. Yeah.
Critic scores are much more aligned with my taste.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow. That's impressive. That's impressively bad. Wow. Okay. Adam, number 9.
All right. I have a feeling this is going to be Merlot, but my number 9, and I'm going to guess it's going to be Zach who's going to Merlot it. Never, Sometimes, Rarely, Always.
I've never heard of that movie. I've heard of Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always. But
what did I say?
Knows the title this time.
Whatever you said, it wasn't the title.
Okay. Well, I can edit this. Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always.
No. This is all staying in.
But I want to hear what Adam has to say about it, though. Like,
we'll talk about it when it's on your list, Zach.
And he will talk about it. Is it on your list?
On my list.
Because he gave it 4 stars.
So
is it on your list?
We're not talking about it again until I bring it up?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or until the next person. Yeah, until the one who has it highest.
And then
almost sideways.
Well, then because then if it was on like my list, I would say Merlot or whatever. And then if it was on your list, even higher, then we talk about it when it's the highest one.
All right. Okay.
We're almost sideways, the place of movie conversation. So we'll save that for as a big conversation piece.
I'm Merlot it then.
Okay.
There we go.
All right.
Okay.
Number 9 on my list then is another animated movie. I'm going with Soul for my number 9. Merlot. Okay, there we go. We'll talk about it later. Wow. I just like that I'm starting my list with 2 animated movies. So
that's good.
Deal with that. Okay. That means we're
going to be higher.
Possible. Zach, number 9.
Oh, this movie's not going to be Merlot because no one's seen it or heard of it. Although maybe, I don't know. Who knows?
Have you seen it, Zach?
I have seen it. Believe it or not. No. So this is actually the Icelandic submission for the 2020 Academy Awards. No Merlot? Okay. I didn't think so.
Eurovision?
No, it's not Eurovision. It does not star Will Ferrell. It is a movie called A White, White Day, and it is directed by someone named Hilner Palmason. And it tells the story of a semi-retired police officer, captain. He's played by Ingvar Snögsen. I can't pronounce Icelandic. But
I love your accent, though.
I'm trying. And he is a recent widower. In the opening scene, his wife drives off a cliff. That's not a spoiler. But the rest of the movie is him kind of piecing together why his wife commits suicide. He has this kind of interesting extended family. He's very close with his granddaughter. And he's also in the process of working on his house. And so the movie is almost like a kid with ADD in a way, because there are a lot of weird cutaways. Like there's this one time where he throws a rock off the cliff, and then there's 60 seconds of the camera following the rock. There's another scene where his granddaughter's watching this really strange schizophrenic Icelandic kids TV show, and it's just like a close-up of it for 5 minutes. I think it's kind of fascinating. Some people may get annoyed with it or bored with it. It's a really interesting movie that has a secret kind of droll sense of humor, but it's actually also a look at this guy's sort of descent into I don't know if I'd call it madness or insanity, but serious grief and PTSD issues with the loss of his wife. He becomes obsessed with this idea that she was cheating on him. Really good movie if you like that kind of European art sensibility. It reminded me a little bit of Michael Haneke's movies, but with Aki Kaurismäki's sort of, again, droll, sly sense of humor. Really good movie. I'd highly recommend it, and I hope it gets an Oscar nomination. It is called A White, White Day, with a lot of long Icelandic names in it.
I don't know how you botched the first guy's name. It's Sigurdsson. Like, that isn't even that hard. Like, the other two.
Well, his character name is Ingmungar, but it sounded a lot more natural when you're watching the movie.
The name is Farrell. Will Farrell.
I just came across this on Amazon. I was scrolling through there, and I actually remember seeing that title. Sounded interesting.
Yeah, Donald Trump also likes the title, but I don't think he likes the movie. White
Low
day.
blow. Yeah. Higher ground, Zach. Okay. Number 8 to Todd. Go for it.
So my number 8 is Soul, the Disney Plus movie. And are we good? No one else has it? Okay.
We're the only two that have it? What? Okay.
It is about a high school music teacher who accidentally dies. I guess he can accidentally die on his way to his on the day of his big break. So we see the adventure his soul goes to be reunited with his body. And Pixar is a studio of ideas. This is another great idea, but Pete Docter is the one who can make the most emotionally resonant and most complicated films. It's funny and tragic, and I think it's really deeply emotional. It's unlike anything I've really ever seen, other than maybe Inside Out, which also was Pete Docter, and that's more because of its execution and animation style more than anything. I think it's a movie that's easy to get swept up in, but it's not the movie that's easiest to take in. It explores ideas about your subconscious and your reason for living and living life to the fullest. And it also centers on an adult, which is not normal for Pixar. Maybe that ups the emotional ante just a tad for me. So yeah, my number 8 is Soul.
Nice.
Yeah, so I get to talk about this a little bit too. I always felt like it was I always felt like it was like Inside Out for grown-ups. And I think I said that when we reviewed it too. And because it has a lot of the same emotional resonance that Inside Out does, except it has this more adult vibe to it. I thought it was really interesting. I put the 2 animated movies, 9 and 10, on my list. And what's fascinating about it is Wolfwalkers is amazing because of its because of how rough around the edges it is. Like, you can still see the drawing marks on some of the things. One of the things that makes Soul so great is how polished it is and how just beautiful the cinematography of the animation is. And that adds so much to it as well. And the emotional resonance of it, I mean, it just cuts you to the core. And so yeah, it had to be on my list as well.
It's a good movie.
I feel like there's always a spot on our list for Pixar.
Always. Unless it's, like, what, Cars 3 or something like that.
So, in your opinion, Terry, does Soul have the inside track? Or because there's a lot of Wolfwalkers fans out there. I mean, it has a big following.
I think it's either going to be Soul or Wolfwalker. I think Wolfwalkers could pull it off.
But you thought that about that dumb Christmas movie on Netflix last year.
Yeah, Klaus almost pulled it off last year too.
No,
but then
it's always so Pixar.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Soul. I think what has Wolfwalkers getting a little bit of a boost is the fact that it is on Apple TV Plus. It's very readily available and it's easy to find.
People don't have it.
What?
People don't have Apple TV Plus.
I know. And Klaus was on Netflix, but I would say Klaus being on Netflix was the only thing that got it nominated. But it's still Soul. It's got to still be Soul. Everyone's going to be rooting for Wolfwalkers, but when it comes down to it, it's going to be Soul.
Yeah, good stuff.
All right. So then let's see here. Who are we? I feel off. Oh, it's Adam. Adam, number 8.
Number 8 for Adam. I'm gonna do a reaction shot here because this could be a conversation starter. Number 8, Tenet with Christopher Nolan.
I was wondering if you were going to Merlot my bottom 5 list, but
you had a feeling. All right, so I'm talking Tenet here. Okay, so this is one that I did not see in theater. I wish I did, and I've been kind of critical on some of Christopher Nolan's films recently. Like Dunkirk didn't really care for Dunkirk too much, and Interstellar was okay, but Tenet for me was a very interesting movie. Do I understand everything that happened on the first time? No. Did I like it better the second time? Absolutely. But watching it on the 4K version of it with my decent sound system, I actually thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I was piecing it together. I like the performance from John David Washington and Robert Pattinson. And heck, if Christopher Nolan wants to do a James Bond movie, he basically kind of did it with this film. I think it's a good little it'd be really interesting to do. And it was a cool heist film. I was kind of just on the edge of my seat watching this movie, and it was pretty dang cool. Like, granted, you can say what you want about the plot, but it was a cool movie to watch for me, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And sometimes for 2020, having an enjoyable experience watching a film kind of gives it the boost above some other movies, and that's why it's in my top 10 pretty easily.
It is Christopher Nolan's worst movie.
No,
Christopher Nolan's
Prestige. Way worse.
The Prestige at least had it had you interested until the end, and the twist just sucked. Tenet
Interstellar is a legitimately bad movie, Terry.
But at least Interstellar was trying to say something. This isn't trying to say anything. I mean, all right, I am putting this in the same category as like Mad Max Fury Road. Cool to look at, but no plot, and so I hated it.
And so it'll be on critics all decade list.
Exactly. I mean, what didn't we say last time? Like Bartonelli has his number 1 of the year or something like that, right?
Yeah. But that's not a shocker.
It's just yeah. I've got it ranked right now as Nolan's worst movie he's ever done.
That was the 4th Christopher Nolan movie he's put as his number 1, so that's not shocking.
Give me 1 second here. Let me take a look here. Okay, there we go. That's more like it.
Terry, we don't need him. Tenet hater.
You haven't even seen it, Zach, and you're gonna hate it too.
I'm gonna be contrarian now. Now that
like he was with Hillbilly Elegy.
Exactly.
Talk to Kyle Heck about Tenet. I think
one of the Kyles.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think it's me next, right? It's me.
Number 8, right?
Yeah, number 8. Okay, so number 8 for me. We're getting into the like Todd said, the rules don't really apply because it's 2020. And so number 8 for me is Red, White, and Blue, the third part of the Small Axe anthology by Steve McQueen. I loved this part. I thought it was amazing. John Boyega shows so much more than he has before, that he is so much more than just Star Wars, as he plays this based on a true story, this man who was a scientist. He went to school to become a scientist and gave all that up to become a police officer and try to enact change in some of the systemic racism happening in London from the inside. I felt like this did so well everything that that Black Klansman messed up, where Spike Lee in Black Klansman was trying to manipulate the audience and tell them over and over again, this is what you should be feeling. This was so very raw and just real, and told the story unapologetically, and because of that, you felt the emotion you were supposed to feel. And I just felt it was a beautiful film. It was a beautiful performance, and yeah, definitely belonged on my list. So number 8 is Red, White, and Blue.
Discussion.
That was the weakest one of the 5. But I mean, you could have the other ones higher than it, so I guess we might agree.
It's not the only submission from Small Axe on my list.
Did not get Merlot, Terry.
No, yeah, I know. I had a feeling it wasn't going to, but all right. Okay, Zach, number 8.
I have a feeling my number 8 might get Merlot. It was my favorite comedy this year, and we reviewed it on the podcast. We all loved it. It is Palm Springs.
Merlot.
Okay, we're moving on.
Wow.
Maybe it will make all of our lists. That would be something.
That was impressive right there. Awesome. Okay. Todd, number 7.
My number 7 is a movie I just watched this week. It is the Michael Angelo Covino movie, The Climb, which is available on video on demand. It is an expansion of the short film by the same director. It is about Kyle and Mike. Kyle is like an all-around nice guy, and Mike is his horrible best friend. And on a bike ride through the mountains, he reveals that he slept with Kyle's fiance. And after that, we get like a series of vignettes about that shows their evolution of their friendship over the course of several years. It's got the painful comedy of like a Jim Cummings movie, but it's clearly inspired by Sideways and probably mumblecore as well. The performances are awesome. Covino is the star, as well as his co-star and co-writer Kyle Marvin. And you could tell that they're based on themselves, but not just because their names are the same, but because the performances are just so authentic. They feel so lived in, and I honestly couldn't recast them. It's also shot in these like really long, unbroken takes, which makes you feel like you're watching more like footage than you are actually watching a narrative film. It's a movie I have not stopped thinking about ever since I watched it, and these types of independent movies just don't get made anymore. I probably wouldn't have come across it if it wasn't for Adnan Virk naming it one of his best movies of the year. It really is. Like, The Climb is a special movie.
Nice. I love the shout out to Adnan too. Well done, Todd.
Yes. I'm surprised you didn't go see it, Terry.
I didn't go see that one. Not yet, at least. Not yet. All right. Adam, number 7.
Just
go ahead.
real quickly, just in case we're keeping score, that is 3 movies now that we have overlapped. So Todd is way under. Because I'm guessing there's still a few more out there. Maybe a movie,
I said 3. What?
Maybe a movie with Riz Ahmed, but
I said 4, so I think there's possibly 2 more left.
Wait, what were the ones we've had so far?
Soul, Palm Springs, and Never
Rarely.
Rarely, Always.
Oh,
Or
which was hard.
Whatever the hell
That
Adam
was
said.
barely a barely a punt. Barely
All right.
a Merlot.
Adam, number 7.
All right, number 7 is Palm Springs.
Merlot.
So it's a little higher on Todd's.
does it count like twice if it gets Merlot?
Well, we're going to talk about it when Todd gets up there. Talk about when Todd.
No, it's still just one. That's still just one movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll talk about it when it pops up on the highest list.
So we can say that it's been triple Merlot, which sounds like a bad thing, but it's actually a really good thing, right?
That movie's
Triple
aging
Merlot.
like a fine wine.
I was gonna say I want to drink the triple Merlot. That sounds good. Okay, so that means it's to me now, number 7. Okay, and I don't think I'm gonna get Merlot on this one. My number 7 is Education, the 5th part of the Small Axe anthology.
Wow.
My favorite part. It is the last part that's popping up on my list. Barely qualifies as a movie as it's an hour and 3 minutes, but like we said, it's 2020. The rules don't count. So this is the story of a young boy, Kingsley, played by Kenya Sandy, and his struggle going through the education system as a black boy in London. As a teacher, I found this part fascinating and compelling. As this young boy who struggles to read has kind of fallen through the cracks and ends up getting sent to an alternative school that is basically a place they send kids that are trouble in the classroom, that are far behind, just to basically forget about them until they can be in the workforce and really make sure that these families and these minority groups are stayed down in the society there. I thought it was fascinating. I thought it was moving, and I thought it was very hopeful too in the way it ends. And you gotta love the inspiration of the end of it as well. So, Education is my number 7.
Still haven't seen it.
Have you seen any of them, Adam?
I'm the one person that's missed out on them yet so far.
Man,
I don't know that Zach ever gave his thoughts on the last 2 episodes.
I like both of them. I wouldn't. They were not Merlot by me. The last 2, but I would agree with a lot of points that Terry said. I thought the ending was very poignant, and I liked the message, but wasn't overwhelmed by it. Not like the first 2.
I like Alex Wheatle more.
that was my least favorite. I like how we're completely opposite on this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely opposite.
I'm in the middle. What a shocker.
Yeah, that's usually how it ends up happening. Someone's in the middle. All right, moving on to Zach, number 7.
Okay, number 7, I hope gets Merlot. It is a movie that now has 8 votes on IMDb. It is Strummer. Waiting for it.
Unfortunately not.
Oh, come on, man.
However, we did add a vote. We got it up one.
That's good.
And it wasn't me. I still need to see it.
Strummer, it's such a Todd movie too, but whatever, your loss. I love this movie, man. This is okay. So, if in case you didn't listen to our episode when I reviewed it, it is a movie that is randomly on Amazon Prime. The first 5 minutes of this movie are an unbroken shot in black and white where this guy's on a bed on his phone. And if you're thinking, what the hell is this? Am I going to keep watching this? Just keep watching it, okay? Because it gets better. It does have a lot of long, unbroken shots, but, it's borrowed from the mumblecore movement. It feels very, Kevin Smith, mid-90s kind of stuff, very indie as it gets. In fact, the budget, I think, was $180. It tells the story of Travis, who's this slacker dude who lives with his dad, and he goes on Tinder, randomly hits up girls, and sometimes he makes a connection with them, sometimes he doesn't. It's also a very didactic approach that I feel like has its roots a little bit in the French New Wave. It feels at times almost like a Godard film. So the character meets this other character named Daphne, I believe is her name. I could be wrong, but they strike up not just a sexual relationship, but something deeper with their mutual love for music, and they form a band together called Like Love. When Todd and I talked about this movie, we both said that we would download the Like Love album because their music is amazing. And I loved everything about this movie. I was pulling for this movie. I had no idea where it was going. It could have been a piece of crap, but gradually you really start falling in love with these characters. They don't have great speeches. They're not particularly eloquent, but it really does kind of show you the nature of relationships in 2020. It's a very 2020 movie. It only takes place in people's bedrooms. And I think it has a really kind of hopeful, meaningful message. Just some great performances. Cody Clark is a filmmaker to look out for. This movie totally blindsided me. It's the reason you go to movies is to find movies like this and be totally perplexed and surprised that someone could have this much originality and talent and never be heard of at all. So hopefully Cody Clark gets more recognition. But awesome movie, Strummer. Check it out. Should be on Todd's list.
It is a great movie.
I think we need to work on getting Cody Clark on the podcast. I think we can do this.
I still haven't watched Shredder. I've been meaning to, but I just
Strummer is a sequel, apparently. I have not seen Shredder either, but
we are a quarter of your votes on IMDb. Come on our podcast.
I'll reach out. I'll try to find his contacts and I'll reach out to him.
There we go. Now we're talking. Okay. I'm glad that popped up because I think that was one of the best reviews we gave all year. It just shouting out a random movie with 7 votes on IMDb.
A passion project with a passion reviews. That's the best part.
Yeah. Todd, number 6.
My number 6 was mentioned on the podcast, but not on someone's list. It is Black Bear, directed by Lawrence Michael Levine, which is available on Spectrum and Video on Demand. It is a movie starring my girl, Aubrey Plaza, as a filmmaker who is looking for inspiration for her next film. So she goes to stay at this lake house with a couple, and it's kind of dark because she starts to play this seduction game with them. And then about halfway through, everything gets completely flipped and becomes something entirely different. It's about something of the extent to which filmmakers go to push their actors for the sake of their art. And it's about that blurred line between great directing and abuse. Aubrey Plaza is stunning, and she should be winning Best Actress. I don't know why this movie never got more headway in the awards race. Christopher Abbott is also in it, and he's the king of these types of indie films. I can't figure out why he isn't a bigger star. Everything about him just seems like he should be a big movie star. The movie really got under my skin, and I can't believe it's not in my top 5. There's actually a surprising amount of the movies this year that are these borderline 4-star movies, and on a rewatch they could end up being the best movie of the year, and this is one of them. Black Bear is great, and I can't wait till people actually see it when it comes out on video or whatever.
Yeah, I want to see that one.
I want to try to watch that today, but I got sucked into watching Ink Master, and I just binged watched a bunch of those, so I couldn't watch Black Bear yet.
Probably not a great decision.
Hey, I like watching people get tattooed. I don't know, but yeah, probably the movie's probably better than the show for sure.
All right, Adam, number 6.
Okay, you guys recently talked about this film on the podcast. Has a possibility of being on maybe Todd's list. Probably one of the best acted films of the year. Pieces of a Woman is number 6 on my list with Vanessa Kirby and no Merlot. Okay, so yeah, Vanessa Kirby and Shia LaBeouf, and this is back-to-back years. Shia has appeared on my top 10 at some point, and this movie was an emotional roller coaster, especially that 30-minute scene. It's probably could be in the argument for one of the best scenes of all of 2020. It was just an emotional thing, especially if you've had, you've gone through a similar situation. It definitely hits you a little harder than if you hadn't. And that's exactly how it hit me. It hit me really hard. And seeing Vanessa Kirby kind of convey different emotions and possibly go through postpartum depression as well. Seeing Shia LaBeouf being this electric character, and I could only see him or Ben Foster playing. I think Todd made the same comparison. Those two actors definitely are electric in this, or would be electric in this role. And the relationship between the two characters there's a dynamic component to them that just was something I couldn't stop looking at and puzzling in my head too. The ending scene, the courtroom scene, played out differently than I originally anticipated, but this is a movie that was an emotional roller coaster for me again, and I just couldn't stop thinking about it after I watched it. And that's a lot of these films did that are on my top 10, and I just couldn't stop thinking about them, get them out of my head. So Pieces of the Woman, number 6 on my list, streaming on Netflix.
That's a great choice. It just missed my list, really.
And for me, I think if it had been all about like that first half hour, then it would have been a masterpiece and on my list. But I think it really kind of lost its way in the direction it took the story, especially going into like the court case. It just kind of lost its way, I thought. But the beginning and then kind of everything with Vanessa Kirby kind of working through it, I thought was great. But yeah, the court case really lost it for me.
Do we ever find out why Shia LaBeouf wants to go to Seattle? I think that was a question raised on the podcast. Are there fan theories about that?
I don't know. Probably, I guess is like as far away as possible.
Well, I know that he has a buddy up there, kind of in Portland, who's he was a lumberjack. Dexter was up there, so they're going to meet up there.
It's funny because Zach doesn't know what we're talking about.
I don't know what you're talking about. Is it Ellen Burstyn's ex-husband from when she was born in the 30s and her daughter was born in the 80s? Oh, okay.
We'll go with that.
That could be it.
Okay. It's to me now. My number 6 is a movie that we talked about on the podcast fairly recently, and it was me and Adam that talked about it, and that is One Night in Miami, the directorial debut of Regina King, starring Kingsley Benadir, Eli Gorey, Aldous Hodge, and Leslie Odom Jr. as Malcolm X, Cassius Clay, Jim Brown, and Sam Cooke. And it is their kind of based on true events, but fictionalized account of one night that the four of them spend in Miami, just kind of talking about life, talking about civil rights, talking about their role in civil rights, what everyone should be doing, what they shouldn't be doing. And I was just completely fascinated by this. One of the things I talked about on that episode was that you have this and Ma Rainey's Black Bottom as these two based on a play movies that came out this year that kind of have some similar themes and also very much based in just kind of one area. And I thought One Night in Miami did everything so much better than Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, where Ma Rainey's Black Bottom was contrived and it was it felt completely inauthentic. Everything about One Night in Miami I felt was authentic. The conversation flowed in a natural way. The characters were believable, and the performances were just outstanding. I loved all four of them, and it's a movie that really stuck with me after I watched it, and I really, really loved it. And a great start to Regina King's career behind the camera. So One Night in Miami is my number 6.
Well, she's directed a lot of TV too, but dude, I don't know. I think your review actually made me like it less. Like because I mean, I don't think the movie is good at all. I think the guy who plays Muhammad Ali is awful. Like there's nothing redeemable about that performance.
I did say he was the one that was a little more of an impression than than a performance.
And Aldous Hodge is the highlight of the movie. Like, his Jim Brown is awesome, and he's the most believable character, and he's the most grounded character. He's the only one that I actually could get behind. I wish I would have been on that review, because we would have had an interesting discussion. But I think the screenplay is kind of stupid. Like, I think the dialogue is really lame, and it really gets really cliche. And yeah, it's not a good movie. But
Well, which do you say is better, this or Ma Rainey's Black Bottom? Because I think it's hard to not compare the two.
I think Ma Rainey's Black Bottom is better. I think that. I think I don't know. Neither I didn't give either a thumbs up, but I think Ma Rainey's Black Bottom is a better movie with better, more believable performances.
The performances are great in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, but I thought the script there and the way the storytelling happens there, it was just setting up monologues, where this felt like a true conversation. Zach, have you seen this yet?
I've not. Should have put it on my blind spot. I think Todd's review scared me, though.
Yeah, it's a Ma Rainey's and this one are both, I gave positives, but they are lower positives on my list. I understand where Terry's coming from, but I also understand where Todd's coming from. I kind of like typical, like, almost sideways reviews. Like, there's a guy always in the middle, and it's exactly where I'm at too. It's like I can see both sides, but I'm just gonna play it safe and go, it's right in the middle.
I think Zach sides with me on this one. I think he I think he's gonna side with me.
Why couldn't they have had Will Smith play Muhammad Ali?
Because he's old.
It was like 19, 20-year-old Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
This
is when he's still
they used in
Clay.
Whatever that movie was.
Cassius Clay.
Oh, Cassius Clay. Okay.
It's the same cinematic universe, though.
Maybe Jaden Smith.
Oh, there we go.
I will say, I think Will Smith playing Muhammad Ali kind of ruined any other potential performance of anybody else playing it, because that was just amazing and iconic. All right. Well, Zach, you need to watch that one and break the tie here. And it's time for your number 6.
All right. Well, I could have Merloted one of Terry's picks, but I decided not to. My number 6 film is also from the Small Axe film series, but it is neither of the films that Terry mentioned. It is the first film, Mangrove. This was my favorite of the series, and it was the one that felt the most like a film. I love Lover's Rock. That was an amazing experience. Didn't quite feel like a full story. I don't know what it was. It felt like something awesome, but I also kind of feel the same way about the other 4. But Mangrove was a movie that you could actually imagine seeing in a movie theater. It had lots of time for character development, character interactions. It takes place over a longer period of time than I think any of the other films do. And it's also, for me, the most emotionally compelling, in part because it doesn't really have a true protagonist. I think the closest it gets to a protagonist is the Sean Parks character, Frank Critchlow, who is this sort of reluctant advocate and social justice pioneer, because really what he just wants is for his restaurant to not be raided by police. He wants to operate his business in peace. But he is thrown into this revolution, this movement for the African community in London to get recognized and to not be continually abused by the police. Terry pointed out in his review when we talked about it that he really liked The Judge. This is I think the best courtroom procedural movie of the year. The Judge is a really fascinating character in this movie. You don't really find out much about him. But there are a lot of like small characters like that throughout the piece that are extremely well acted. Letitia Wright and Malachi Kirby are both excellent in the movie, as well as members of the Mangrove Nine. It teaches a very important history lesson that is, I guess, not too far removed from Crip Camp, which was also on my list. A part of history that has been unfortunately ignored and neglected, but is one that's really important. And I think that's something that Steve McQueen is amazing at, which is telling stories that have a meaningful importance in terms of history, but also having a really strong emotional connection. So I was deeply moved by Mangrove. That is the second movie. I would say that I got very close to tearing up at the end. I thought it was actually a beautiful end. And I think there was even more to that chapter that the movie actually could have explored, because the end credits kind of tell you a little bit more about that story. But it's an awesome movie, and I think a must-see for anyone who's interested in the history of civil rights, history of London, history of marginalized groups banding together in solidarity and standing up for themselves. So really awesome movie. Awesome series too. I don't know what to do with it, but that was my favorite one of the series.
Yeah, it just missed my list. Mangrove did, because that was another one that was just outstanding. And yeah, what do you do with this? I mean, if you're calling Small Axe one thing, like one anthology, like I know you do with the Decalogue, this is probably like one or two, like 1, 2, 3 on my top 10 of the year, because you think about the entirety of what this is. It is just absolutely outstanding what Steve McQueen was able to accomplish here, considering all the different parts together. I mean, the fact that 3 almost made my top 10 just shows how highly I think of it. And I almost just did a tie so I could put more stuff in, because I felt bad taking up 2 spots with Small Axe movies, but oh well.
Yeah, and in a way too, I think I like Mangrove the best also because it's Steve McQueen at his most restrained. Sometimes he's been a little bit excessive and draws attention to his stylistic and aesthetic choices rather than the content of his stories. And in this one, I think he kind of lets it breathe on its own a little bit because it is such an important story to tell. Whereas Lovers Rock is great too, but that you can kind of see, technique in the way that it's constructed. But really good piece too. But Mangrove to me is a super amazing story with great performances, and if there was any justice in the world, they would get several acting Oscar nominations.
Well, but it won't, because it's competing for Emmys instead.
Yeah, but that's okay.
Good stuff.
Who cares?
All right, moving into the top 5. Todd,
Boom, boom.
number 5.
My number 5 has been Merlot twice. It's Palm Springs,
Hell yeah.
directed by Max Barbacow. It's on Hulu. It's astonishing that a movie with a debut screenplay and a director who's making his first movie can be so polished and confident, because that's what this movie is. It's this movie starring Andy Samberg as Niles, who gets stuck in a time loop at a wedding in Palm Springs, and he accidentally gets Sarah, played by Christina Milioti, the maid of honor at the wedding, stuck in there with him. And it like plays with the genre, and it uses the awareness that has been done before to its advantage. And you can actually feel like the influence of Lonely Island on the movie, but it's not really a Lonely Island movie. I've watched it 4 or 5 times now. I just watched it again yesterday, actually, and it never fails. I mean, you still get the same amount of laughs, the same amount of confusion, and it's just a really great movie to watch. Like every single time, it's just a pleasure watching the movie. J.K. Simmons is also awesome in the movie, and unfortunately, he's not getting any awards consideration, but he really should. It's a brilliant movie, and I think it's probably the best pure comedy in the last few years, and a movie I never expected to be this high on the list, but here we are. It's 2020, whatever. Palm Springs is number 5.
Yeah, I guess I'll just kick it off too, because this was on my list. Yeah, this movie wound up being on my number 7 spot, but it could definitely be higher. This movie is fantastic. I am a fan of this style of movie where they just kind of repeats the same day. I really love Groundhog Day, of course, which is the kind of the pinnacle, the tippy top of this kind of film style of film, but also like Happy Death Day and Premature and other movies that kind of play around with the same style of film. And this one is definitely really close to my enjoyment level of like Groundhog Day. It's fantastic. I love the leads. I love all the characters in this film. I like how it kind of pokes fun at this genre and also kind of pushes things forward as well. So I'm kind of excited to see what comes next in this one. I would love to see a spin-off film with just J.K. Simmons, how he figures out how to get out of this plot as well. Palm Springs was a fun time. It's definitely the best comedy of this year, probably of last year, and like Todd said, for the last couple of years. But this one definitely packed a punch and packed a lot of good humor in there as well. So definitely one of the best films of the year. I think Zach had it too, right?
Yeah, Zach, you want to talk about it?
Yeah, I mean, one of the central conflicts in this movie is how Andy Samberg is stuck in this time loop, but he's also a slacker and he doesn't really want to do anything about it. And the Christina Milioti character comes in and sort of says, "Well, no, we need to get out of this." But if you think about Andy Samberg's character, this movie is so good. It's so rewatchable. It's so fresh. It's so creative. I think you can almost understand why he would never want to leave the time loop, because it's like awesome. It's hilarious. The time loop part itself is interesting, but in a way, it's almost the least interesting part of this movie. The character conversations and interactions and the dynamics, particularly between the two leads, but also when you throw in J.K. Simmons, is just fabulous. And you actually, a strange thing starts happening as you watch this movie, which is that you actually start caring about the characters. Like I was never expecting to care about anyone in an Andy Samberg movie that seems like a Lonely Island skit. but I actually really want to know what happens to them next, and what happens to them is not predictable. So I don't know. This movie is, like I said, compulsively watchable. I think years from now, people will be talking about just how good this movie is. And I don't know, 2020 messed up a lot of things, but I wonder in a non-COVID world, what would happen to this movie? I think it would be more celebrated, more praised, more watched. At least I'd hope.
Here, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, I really love this movie too. It just
Yeah,
didn't
we
make
all
my
love it.
list. I didn't have it as a 4-star movie, but yeah, it's awesome, and I can totally see the rewatchable factor on this one too. So
In 2030, we're going to do a rewatchables on it. Or deep dive.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine Andy Samberg after he gets out of the time loop and then is like, "Oh wait, COVID? No, I want to go back." I mean,
he was right. He was. That was a very prescient decision to stay in the time loop. He's very justified.
all right. Before we go any further, Todd, I just need to double check something. What was your number 7? I'm trying to keep track of these things. And I missed it.
Yeah, the
Climb. That's right. I missed it. I'm like, oh, maybe he had Palm Springs there, but no, you had Palm Springs here. So, okay, we're good now.
Okay.
The pot is set. So
Pod is set.
The pot is set. So Adam, number 5.
All right, my number 5 is probably the documentary that I really enjoyed the most out of this last year, and that is a film directed by David Darg and Price James. It's called "You Cannot Kill David Arquette." And no one has seen it, so
Nope.
Okay.
I like the moment where everyone's just like, and is anyone gonna say anything? No. Okay, I gotta talk.
Cool. Okay, cool. So this mixes a lot of different cool things for me. I'm a wrestling fan, and this is a wrestling documentary through and through. But who would have thought that David Arquette would have been kind of an underdog story? If you didn't know, quickly just run through the history here. He made a film called Ready to Rumble in the late 90s, early 2000s, where he's a diehard wrestling fan in real life, but he plays a diehard wrestling fan in this one. And he basically goes and interacts with a bunch of WCW wrestlers, which is owned by Ted Turner back in the late 90s. And basically, this company decided to promote this movie. They were going to have him win their main championship. And the fans absolutely hated it because he was not a wrestler. The wrestlers hated the decision, too, because he didn't pay his dues. He didn't know anything, but he was actually landing moves and won this coveted championship. And he actually got blacklisted in Hollywood, and a lot of his kind of career went downhill, and he got bullied quite a bit. And he decided that he's actually going to come back and make a comeback. So he decides, I'm going to go back into wrestling, kind of redeem myself. And he steps in, he tries to get on this thing, but you could tell that there was a lot of stigma. That no one wanted to work with him. He kind of goes into alcoholism as well. Instead, he goes to Tijuana, and he starts learning from lucha libres down there. And he actually fights like on the street of Tijuana, like street wrestling. And he learns how to do it. And he actually gets donned this lucha mask too, and he fights with like these big old professionals. And he starts making his way into the wrestling, actually redeeming himself too. And you see his awesome match with RJ City and how that was set up in California. And it basically culminates at one of the big things where he actually almost died in the ring. He had a death match, and he thought it was just like a hardcore match, but no, he actually got like kind of almost got pierced his jugular in this thing. That's where I really knew he was actually back in wrestling, kind of, you play it back. And he almost died in that match too. And they actually show it, and it's really graphic on that part, but he actually redeems himself, and he actually worked hard, and he actually finished, I believe in 2019, he was ranked top 100 wrestlers of the year. It's really cool to see his progression here. And, it wasn't, you could think this documentary would be like, oh, this is about him, but actually they got Patricia Arquette appears in this one. Courtney Cox appears in they got his kids and a bunch of other people, and a lot of famous wrestlers appear in this one too. So it's just kind of a cool underdog story about a guy seeking his redemption. And who would have thought, like David Arquette, man, like going out, and he got sober, and he lost a bunch of weight. So it's just a cool human story. So yeah, You Cannot Kill David Arquette. I've watched it multiple times. Very intriguing. Said my wife, who's not a big wrestling fan, loved it as well. So good stuff from David Arquette.
All right.
Yeah, cool stuff.
Have not seen it.
Zach did text me. He's like, that sounds interesting. Where's it on? And it's on Amazon Prime. You can rent it there. So if you're interested.
All right. Well, let's move on. Number 5 on my list is probably the movie on my list I want to rewatch the most and kind of reevaluate a little bit. But for right now, it's sitting at number 5, and that is The Trial of Chicago 7. And we talked about this when we reviewed it. This is the story of the Chicago 7, the 7 people who were put on trial for inciting riots during the 1968 Democratic Convention in Chicago. And it's got a star-studded cast: Eddie Redmayne, Sacha Baron Cohen, Jeremy Strong, John Carroll Lynch, Yahya Abdul-Mateen, Mark Rylance, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Frank Langella, Michael Keaton. It's a huge cast, and at the heart of it is the writing and directing of Aaron Sorkin. And I love the way Aaron Sorkin tells a story. I think he's able to find a way to make the smart and accessible to everyone in this sharp, witty dialogue that really only he can write. And I love the way he does it. I love the way he tells this story, and how he weaves it all together and has this emotional moment at the end. And using so much that was actually like court documented dialogue of what happened in the courtroom, which I know when we reviewed, it's like this is so like ridiculous and shouldn't be and was bad writing. It's like, no, that's actually what happened. But I love this movie, and it's easy to compare this one to Mangrove because I feel like they're very similar movies, very similar subject contents, and I'm gonna put this one up a little higher. Obviously, this is number 5. Mangrove just missed my top 10. There are some things I think Mangrove did better, but I think just the writing and storytelling of Sorkin just put this one up over the top for me. So that's what gets it at number 5. And like I said, I want to watch this one again. I want to revisit it and see exactly what I think. But it's number 5 for me. Trial of Chicago 7.
Yeah, this is a good pick. I figured this was another one that's in the running to be your favorites. This one I did give 4 stars too, and I will stand by that review. But this was kind of like, was it a 4-star movie for me, or was it just because this was the very first Netflix screener that I was able to get my hands on? What factored into that? But I enjoyed this movie. Okay, I didn't want. No, it was Over the Moon was my first one. Sorry, Over the Moon, and then yeah, that's what it was.
The first one that mattered. It was the first one that mattered.
Whatever. I don't know. It feels like it's forever ago. But anyway, yeah, Trial of Chicago 7, I really like that one. And it's a one I would like to rewatch as well.
Yeah, for me, it was a good movie except for Aaron Sorkin. He's the LVP. I wish a different writer, director had made it, because it feels like an Aaron Sorkin movie, and I'm not sure that that's really the direction that it should have gone in. But for what it's worth, it does have some interesting performances, and I think it's worth just watching it for the sheer fascination of seeing these historical figures interact with each other, which I guess is part of the appeal of One Night in Miami. But I don't know. For me, I could not consider it a serious Oscar contender, but it probably will get nominated for many, many Oscars.
Well, and a lot of people are still saying it's one of the favorites too. And I think the one thing that we were able to agree on in our review of it is Sorkin probably would have been better off giving his script to somebody else and letting someone else direct it.
Yeah, that's
because he kind of gets a little too obsessive when he's directing his own stuff. He hasn't done it very often. But
Molly's Game was pretty awesome.
Molly's Game was pretty awesome. But again, it was poker, so of course you would say it's awesome, Todd.
Molly's Game definitely would have been Merlot in 2017. Let's just put it that way.
All right, Zach, number 5.
Oh, and speaking of getting Merlot, and I'm sure my number 5 film is going to get Merlot. It is the Taiwanese submission for Best International Film, and Merlot. We'll leave it at that for now.
Well, you got to get what's the title at least?
It is called A Son.
Okay.
Damn, that's another one I missed down. Okay, I'm writing it down. Yeah. Good call.
I had a feeling it was going to be Merlot. Just as,
all right.
All right. My number 4
which now means Metal. Todd was wrong.
Yeah, I'm wrong.
Yeah. Your number 4 is Sound of Metal.
Yeah.
Merlot.
All
right. So there we go. So now it's Adam, number 4.
All right, so this one will not get more load. This one was one of those lone theater experiences that I just missed out on. This is the one that when everything went to hell, this one they just said, this is going straight to streaming. Enjoy it. And that is Lee Winnell's The Invisible Man with Elizabeth Moss.
Nice.
So this guy is a fantastic director, man. He's directed 3 movies. 2 of them have made my top 10s originally. Like Upgrade just has been knocked out of my top 10, but that is a great action film, and I really loved this Invisible Man movie. Elizabeth Moss is electric. It's kind of like the Lupita Nyong'o from Us. Like, this is a fantastic horror performance that is going to get overlooked in awards contention, but she's riveting in this movie. Every time she's on a performance, she just knocks it out of the park, and she just destroys this film because she's reacting to something that's we can't see. It's a great way to do it. And Lee Winnell, man, 3 films. I've liked everything he's done. Insidious 3, the Chapter 3 was really actually an underrated film in that series. But he has The Wolfman coming up with Ryan Gosling. He has Escape from New York coming up. I'm in first in line for this guy's films. The Invisible Man, great special effects. I think this is going to be, hopefully, a leading contender for those if they remember this movie. It was a great little horror film that it had no business being as good as it was. And it was out of those classic horror films. The Invisible Man's an interesting one because I loved what they did with the special effects back in the day. But this one gave kind of like a rejuvenation. It got new life with an updated version. So Invisible Man, number 4, good film, 4 stars, first one of the year.
So
That is go for it.
I was gonna say, so when this week I like built a list in my head of everything I wanted to catch up on before we did this list, and it was a list of like 10 movies long, and I did not get to all of them, but Invisible Man was on that list, and so I still want to really watch that one.
Yeah, it's great.
It's a good movie, yeah, and I think it has like the best visuals of the year. Like the design of the Invisible Man is insane. Like I loved everything it did with that. And Elizabeth Moss is one of my people. So yeah, it was a really good movie.
Yeah, fantastic performance too, man. Like, this is so great. So good.
Now, Todd, what is the best Elizabeth Moss performance of the year? Is it The Invisible Man or Shirley?
I mean, I'd say it's probably Invisible Man. Like they're really close. Both are among the top 10 best actress performances I've seen.
All right. Good deal. Okay. We good, Adam? You good to go?
Yes. Sorry. Yes.
Adam was the Invisible Man for a second.
I know.
I was hoping I was invisible. It looked like I should have removed myself from that. All right, what are we doing now?
It's all good. All right. So moving on to me, number 4. Okay. So as I was building my list, there was a definite like cutoff. Like there was 5 through 10, and then there was my top 4. And my top 4 are like solid, by far the 4 best of the year. And so my number 4 is a movie I actually just watched this week. It is the reason I decided that this week I needed to subscribe to Apple TV Plus before I put my top 10 list together. And that is my documentary, the best documentary of the year, Boys State. This is directed by Amanda McBain and Jesse Moss, and tells the story of the 2018 Texas Boys State, which is something that takes a bunch of high schoolers from a state together and brings them together in one spot. And basically for a week, they run a government. Like our government, they run for offices. They learn about how to make laws. They elect a governor. They do all this stuff in a week and get a little microcosm of what it's like to run our government for a week. I had a little bit of a personal connection to this when I was in high school. I went to Washington Boys State. And so I know I had, like, as they were going through, I'm like, I remember what this was like. I remember what that was like. They take it to an extreme new level because of the politicization of our society right now. And it's definitely showed through this. And then you add the fact that it's Texas, and Texas is like a battleground for a lot of political discussion and debate right now. But it is fascinating. It's frustrating. It's inspiring to see to see how you've got some people who have already learned at a young age that politics is a game you have to play. And like one of the kids talks about how he's straight up lying about what he believes in because he thinks it'll get him votes. And you've got other people saying, I'm going to do everything to sabotage this and that and this and that because it's going to help get things elected. And then you have others that are saying, I'm going to be as authentic and genuine as possible because that's what people are looking for. And it is so fascinating to watch and to realize that these are just like 16, 17, 18-year-old kids.
Yeah.
And they are showing us what the future of our country is going to be in just this little microcosm of a week in the state of Texas and learning how to run a government. It is a fascinating watch. And yeah, like I said, it's frustrating, it's inspiring, it's fascinating. It's totally worth it. Boys State, it's my number 4.
Wow, that sounds really good. I need to check that out.
Yeah, I mean, it's gotten universal praise for the people who have Apple TV. So
just get the 7-day free trial. Watch Boys State. Watch Wolfwalkers.
On the Rocks too.
Watch On the Rocks. Watch Greyhound, and then cancel it, or just pay the $5. $4.99 a month.
And watch Beastie Boys Story. That's another good one too.
One of the lowlights this year is when you guys made me use my HBO Max free subscription on An American Pickle. Thanks.
Now it's like you can't really survive without HBO Max if you don't have theaters open around you.
What? Yeah, man.
Okay.
Wake up from your nap from the little things, though. Jeez, Louise. Okay.
So I'm the only one that has it on my list. Is it because I'm the only one that's seen it so far? Adam, I think you're the only one that's have you seen it?
I hadn't even heard of it, to be honest with you.
Oh,
Boy,
gosh.
I
you
just
have
wrote it down.
Apple TV Plus, dude.
Yeah, I wrote it down. Yeah, sounds great.
And yeah, 2002 Washington Boys State. I was there. It was fun. Good times. I ran for a Supreme Court justice and ended up as their clerk because I lost.
It's a trade-off you make. It's a trade-off.
Yeah. And they do a girls' state too. So they do boys' state and they do girls' state. They do them separately. And then in the context of that, 2 people are chosen from that actually go to Boys and Girls Nation as the state's like senators, and then they try to run a national government doing that too.
Oh wow,
pretty cool. All right, Zach, number 4.
Okay, my number 4 film is another British film. A lot of good British films that came out this year. This is a movie that is directed by the legendary 84-year-old, 2-time Palme d'Or winning director Ken Loach, one of the great directors of all time, maybe the greatest British director. And it is a movie called Sorry We Missed You. It is a movie that is set amidst... Oh, we're going to Terry. Okay, there we go.
You don't want to hear my thoughts on this. I haven't seen it.
Yeah. It's not Sorry to Bother You, which I know Terry has a lot of thoughts on as well. But Sorry We Miss You is set in, I believe it's London, and it's about a family that is, they're getting by. They're very middle class, but they are struggling in the midst of the economic crash of 2008. Although I'm not sure if the movie takes place in 2008 or not. It actually seems pretty contemporary. But the father, who is played by Chris Hitchen, is just sort of a blue-collar guy. At the beginning of the movie, he's signing up to work as this delivery truck driver, and he actually has to literally pay to rent out the truck that he delivers packages in. And you see the agenda of Ken Loach here pretty quickly. And he's always been a director that's very much been motivated by the pressures and social justice movements for equality. And you see right away that this guy's job is very much exploitative and demeaning and damaging to this guy's character. His wife in the movie, who's played by, I'm not seeing the actress's name, Debbie Honeywood, is a home health care worker, and they have 2 children, a teenage son who's getting into trouble, and a daughter who is very observant and kind of can see all the emotional chasms that exist within the family. The movie has this kind of light tone to it. At first, I almost thought it was going to be more of a comedy. It feels almost like a Mike Leigh movie. There's definitely like an element of sort of kitchen sink drama comedy to it. But then the movie takes a very dark direction, in part because of the things that the teenage son does and the reaction of the father character. I think you get a really good portrait of all four of these family members, and not just the suffering that they go through, but also the small victories. There's a really heart-wrenching moment in the movie where the mom is talking to one of her patients, and she basically talks about how her patients give her so much more than she can possibly give them, in terms of health care and support. It's a movie that I think resonates certainly for a lot of Americans too, who are stuck in these sort of dead end jobs where you really feel marginalized, you feel dehumanized. There's a character in the movie who's the father's boss, and he talks about how he has this kind of macho command of everything because he has to remove all the emotional components out of his life. And you know that you just can't do that. And I'm a big fan of the Dardenne brothers. This is the kind of movie that they would make too. I think it's really a riveting and sad story as you see this family sort of deteriorate within the whole spectrum that, they all love each other and they're all very committed to each other, but it is this kind of, it's the way that the financial crash impacts families on an emotional level. And that's something that isn't really oftentimes explored in movies, but Ken Loach is the perfect director for it. And this movie is really, really moving and one of his best films. So number 4, Sorry We Missed You. Really, really solid piece of filmmaking from a master.
Todd, your thoughts?
Todd.
Well, I mean, I think I said this just like last week or whatever. I mean, I thought it was kind of boring, but I mean, I don't really connect to Ken Loach's movies necessarily. I mean, I like The Wind That Shakes the Barley, but like Daniel Blake and this movie, I just can't really, I don't know, maybe it's over my head or something. I just can't really get into him.
Well, this movie's better than both of those, I would say. And some of his earlier work, like Kess. I mean, Kess is considered one of the great, again, British kitchen sink, sort of blue-collar dramas. And it's a movie that you probably have to watch with subtitles, too. They speak in very thick accents, but I don't know. I think his style of filmmaking is really cool. It's sort of like the Dardenne brothers with a little bit of Robert Altman and Mike Leigh. I like this movie. I know Todd's not a huge fan of it, but I would say, give it a chance. I think it's a really solid piece of filmmaking.
All right. Top 3 now. Todd.
All right, my number 3 is available on HBO and HBO Max. It is The King of Staten Island, directed by Judd Apatow, which I reviewed on this podcast and was the only movie I paid $20 to watch on video on demand, and I have no problems with it. Pete Davidson stars and co-writes the movie, and it has a lot of parallels to his life. He plays this guy named Scott who is living as basically a bum with his mother, played by Marissa Tomei, whose father, or Pete Davidson's father, died in a fire. She is a firefighter, and it completely ruined both him and his mother. And his mother starts dating another firefighter played by Bill Burr, who is just amazing and should be getting a nomination. And that makes Scott start to question things. He's sort of at a crossroads with the knowledge that he needs to grow up and that nobody really feels sorry for him anymore. Pete Davidson quite simply gives the best performance of the year. It's the highest war. It is the most raw. It is the most difficult character to play. And if he gets snubbed by the Golden Globes, I'm going to be so upset. I've gone back to this movie a few times, and it still packs a punch, and it gets funnier. It might not be Apatow's funniest movie overall, and it might not be his most easily rewatchable, but it's pretty clearly his best movie. And I love that now he's just making these movies that give the spotlight to the star/writer rather than just getting his freaks and geeks buddies together for a romp. Like Trainwreck brought the best out of Amy Schumer. This brings the best out of Pete Davidson, and it is a truly great film. The King of Staten Island is my number 3.
Yeah, I kind of bummed I didn't put that on my list. That's a great movie. I really like that one. Bill Burr had a year. I don't know if you watched The Mandalorian, but he's fantastic in that show too.
Yes, he is.
Probably my favorite, one of my favorites. So
yeah, I saw a meme recently online that said Bill Burr in 15 minutes in The Mandalorian gave a better former stormtrooper arc than Finn got in 3 movies.
That's true.
It is. Yeah. It totally is.
It was a publicity stunt for the other one, so we're not gonna.
So King of Staten Island is another one that was on my list of wanted to catch up on this week and didn't quite get to. So.
Zach hasn't done it.
I haven't seen it yet, but I have seen Pete Davidson in the SNL sketch with Timothy Chalamet, the Yeet sketch, and I'd be hard pressed to find a better performance than that. So I'll look forward to that.
Hashtag influencer.
All right.
Question: Did you watch Big Time Adolescence, and how do you are those good? He had a great year. Pete Davidson did. Did you see that one yet?
Yeah, that was really good too. I mean, but King of Staten Island, I think, is special. Like Big Time Adolescence, I did take to a lot as well. Like he's unique. Like I mean, I've said before on the podcast, I think he's Sean Penn meets Johnny Knoxville, and there's nobody else I could ever say that about.
He had a good year. Good deal.
I like Big Time Adolescence too. That was a good flick.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, Adam, number 3.
Number 3, possibility of being on another person's list. I think it will be Promising Young Woman.
Merlot.
Ooh, that means we've hit 6. By the way,
what was that? 6? I thought it was 5.
I have 6.
6 now.
That's 6 now. All right. Yep. Oh man, it's me now. Okay. Well, that's okay because my number 3 is Sound of Metal.
Merlot.
There we go. All right. Back number 3 or number 3.
Yeah, number 3. My number 3 is First Cow. I don't think that's going to get Merlot, is it? I know Adam hasn't seen it. Yeah, we'll get Moo. Not Merlot. That was actually really funny. I'm remembering. So last year, Adam also made a really funny comment during my number 3 movie, which is when he talked about the Parasite scene and how I told my kids to watch, and they said that the scene with the couch in the living room made them feel very uncomfortable. And well, anyway.
I stand by what my dad would say. That's all.
Yeah.
I'll say. Exactly.
Memories. Okay. Well, anyway, First Cow. I'll be honest with you. First 30 minutes, First Cow. I was almost ready to give up on it. It is a slow movie. You have to get used to the pace, and it is set in the Oregon Territory, and I think like around 1830, 1840. And if you like Meek's Cutoff and you like Kelly Reichardt's stuff, then obviously you're gonna like the movie. But it is slow at times. Then when you start figuring out who these characters are, and the main 2 characters in the movie are played by, let me get their names right, John Magro and Orion Lee. One of them is this kind of fur trapper dude who's sort of plays this sort of subservient role in his band of macho dudes with beards, and the other is a Chinese immigrant who's on the run from, I think, some Russian gamblers. And when they meet up, they devise this plan because the fur trapper dude, Cookie, is a great cook. And, well, conveniently, there is now a cow, an exotic animal that has been brought into this kind of outskirtish community in the middle of nowhere. It's almost like the set on The Revenant or something. And Cookie and King Lou steal the milk from the cow, and they make these great pastries and like biscuits. And everyone wonders, well, how is this guy making it? But no one really can connect the dots that he's stealing the milk from the cow. There's so much to love about this movie. I mean, the plot is kind of simplistic and even sort of predictable in a way. But what is great about this movie is how it feels. I mean, this is a movie that is shot on film. It feels like McCabe and Mrs. Miller at times and other westerns, like revisionist westerns from the 70s. The relationship between these 2 guys is excellent. I mean, these are not macho men. They are vulnerable to each other, and they really develop this friendship. And male friendships in movies are so hard to come by. This was the best bromance of the year. And the story goes in directions that aren't entirely unpredictable, but the way that Kelly Reichardt shows it is really unique. And the kind of payoff that you get at the end of the movie, which is sort of bookended from the first scene, is unique too, in an unpredictable way. Beautifully shot. It's getting, some Oscar buzz. I hope it gets Oscar buzz. Kelly Reichardt has been on many of my top 10 lists, and this is one of her best films. It's a movie that you probably have to watch 2 or 3 times to fully get, because the pacing is a lot for some people. But once the story gets moving, once it starts accelerating a little bit, once it gets that sort of inertia, it is an absolutely compelling watch. And I could have watched that movie for maybe a couple hours more. So I'm disappointed it's on no one else's list, but I think the critics have spoken for it. Great show, great film. And, Kelly Reichardt is a great director, deserves a lot of recognition. First Cow, check it out.
Yeah, I just watched this one recently, and I agree. It starts really slow, and I almost gave up on it. In fact, I actually turned it off. And a couple days later, I came back to it and gave it another shot because I'd heard so many great things from you also. And and it does kind of resurrect itself as the story gets going and as the characters start to develop a little more. And it is a beautiful movie, but it's just kind of hard to get over how slow it gets going. So I give it 3 stars, but it's yeah.
My
That's
take
where
is
I'm at.
that if I've only seen this movie once, but I would imagine if I were to watch it again, when I watch it again, those first 25, 30 minutes are going to be a lot more impressive and tell you a lot more about these characters that we slowly eventually get to know as the story moves along.
It's
So
possible.
if you had fallen asleep, then it would have been on your worst of the year list. But the fact that you just turned it off and then went back to it, where's the give and take there, Zach?
Oh, I didn't turn it off. Terry turned it off.
I turned it
You
off.
said you almost gave up on it,
Almost gave. I didn't though. I love Kelly Reichardt. I would never give up on any of her films.
but you almost did.
His
Oh,
eyelids didn't give up on it.
Yeah. I think the MVP of the movie is the first cow, because once the cow gets in there, I mean, then the movie just starts really taking off, and it's the best cow performance since the flying cow in Twister, which is maybe something we'll be talking about in future episodes.
Yeah, we will.
It's a good call.
And by saying the story really takes off, that's a loose interpretation of that word there. I mean,
Yeah, it's like in Blast from the Past when he's listening to Perry Como or something, and here's where it really kicks in.
it's like saying after Matt Damon and Casey Affleck get off the rock and Jerry, that's when the story really picks up. It's like, well, yeah, that's because something is actually happening now.
You know, he does have a little bit of comparisons to Jerry. I can kind of see that. But I think from a cinematic level, though, this movie felt like a movie, okay? Those other movies that we've been talking about so far, they feel like you watch them on TV. This movie felt like it was tactile, it was real, it was shot on film. It feels like you're watching something from the past. And it felt like what movies used to feel like. And that's what I love about Kelly Reichardt's cinema.
Felt like something you would need to go to Fox Tower to watch.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or Cinema 21.
Or Cinema 21. Or the Grand. Just shout out all those independent theaters out there. Check them out. Or the Hollywood. Absolutely. I think I only went to the Hollywood once. I was to watch once. Anyways. Todd. Moving on. Number 2.
My number 2 has been mentioned. It is by Mong Hong Chung, the Netflix movie A Son. And it's a Taiwanese movie about a broken family. Ah Wen is the father, and he kind of despises his youngest son. He's kind of a juvenile delinquent, and his name is Ah Ho. But he doesn't realize that his son is like really affected by the fact that he is so withdrawn toward him. And Ah Hao is the older son, and he's living under the pressure of being like the chosen one, and he's working to get into medical school. And eventually there's some tragedy that happens and throws all their lives out of whack. And you just kind of get engrossed in this really wrenching drama, which also kind of shifts genres a couple of times. I compared it immediately to If Ordinary People was made by like Wong Kar-wai. And it's also got some similarities to like The Place Beyond the Pines. There's a little Kubrick in there, a little like Yimou Zhang, a little Tarantino, a little Edward Yang. I wasn't familiar with Chung's work before this, but I'm definitely going to go back and watch his other stuff because this is a remarkable movie. There are like 4 Oscar caliber performances in this. It's definitely the best cast of the year. The final scenes are completely devastating, and this is just an absolute masterpiece. My number 2 is A Son.
Good
All right.
stuff.
Great choice. It is my number 5 of the year. I don't have a whole lot more to add, except this movie starts with a scene of brutal violence, and you think it's going to be about the consequences of that act of violence, and you think that the biggest victim is going to be the person with whom the violent act was committed against, but it's not, and it actually goes in really surprising directions. It focuses on characters that early on in the movie are sort of in the background. You don't really notice them that much. And then it shifts to those characters, and then it goes away from the characters that you think the movie's going to be about. So like Todd was kind of saying, it's this tapestry. In that sense, I can see the comparisons to Place Beyond the Pines. It spans a few years. There's an act of sacrifice in this movie that is shocking. There are a lot of surprises. This is a brilliant, brilliant movie. Totally agreed with Todd. And it's the less you know about it, the better. It does some really surprising things visually, too. And it was quite a discovery to see it. Don't know why it's not getting more press.
I was gonna say, do you think this gets a nomination?
I think it fits the profile. I mean, it's got a really epic scope, and I think it feels like a movie that gets nominated for best foreign film.
I'm trying to remember what's the front runner right now for that.
I don't really know that there is
international.
I don't know.
Maybe another round. I'm not really sure.
Oh yeah, I think you're right. I think that's probably what people would say is the front runner right now.
Did you guys see the article in the New York Times today by Tony Scott about how he thinks they should do away with the best international film category? He had a few other suggestions too, but he said that the Oscars need to be seriously revamped, and the first step would be to get rid of best international feature and just make best picture more international.
I think that's a horrible idea because it wouldn't happen.
Well, maybe in Tony Scott's world it would.
Yeah, it wouldn't happen. So I think what you need to revamp the category, not get rid of the category. I think it's crazy that only one. I mean, I get the only one film per country thing to make sure that smaller countries get recognized, and maybe you say that only one film per country can get nominated. But the fact that like last year, Portrait of a Lady on Fire got left on the scrap heap so that Les Miserables could be nominated and not even be considered.
I think that's what he's talking about more, like the sort of bureaucratic process of countries submitting films. I think he really objects to that.
Yeah.
So maybe revamping that system.
Yeah. Cool. Okay.
That sounds a great pick.
All right. I need to watch that one. Adam, number 2.
Oh man, this is a coin flip here. Two great films,
You're
great
still
character
deciding?
studies.
You're supposed to have this figured out before you.
Wow,
start talking.
this is great. This is great TV. This is great. Like, what's he gonna pick?
Breaking
Wow.
news.
And
Adam
one
is
of
still
them,
deciding.
I'm Merlot too. So that's the tricky part. Where's my coins? I'm gonna flip a coin here. No, either way, these are great films, both deserving at number 1 spots. But as of right now, for this episode, number 2, Sound of Metal. Sound of Metal. Anybody have it higher?
I think everyone else has already said it. Or no?
But we haven't talked about it yet. So I'm just
Zach,
making
are you
sure.
Merloting?
No.
No. Oh.
Okay. So this is where the highest spot. Okay. Cool. All right. Wow, what a performance from Riz Ahmed. I wish this is my performance of the year. I think what he was able to do in this movie. This is what acting looks like without even trying. It seems so flawless, like in his performance here. I loved the sound design. We talked about some sound design in Possessor, but this is by far what they were able to do with this. The lack of sound was fascinating. I was riveted, glued to my screen, just enjoyed this film, and I got a little bit out of it, a lot more as we went along. I thought about it more, and when a film can stick with you in a good way, that it means it's a classic film there. And Sound of Metal just brought so many good elements to it with the storytelling and the character development, and even like the side characters were very interesting, like Paul Raci, who is one of my front runners, hopefully to sneak in there. And when the Film Independent Awards opens up there, and we can actually vote for him, that's going to be one of the people I'm going to vote for too. So the Paul Raci is fantastic as Joe in this one. Olivia Cooke, of course, a lot of people love her, but every performance in this movie was very authentic, and that's what the film feels like to me, a very authentic film led by Riz Ahmed. And he's not known for the Star Wars anymore, guys. He is going to be an Oscar, hopefully nominated actor, because he knocked it out of the park, and he's going to be a force to reckon with, not just because we've seen him do great things like The Night Of, but The Sound of Metal was truly like a power performance and a powerful film that stuck with me all year. And again, it could be my number 1, but right now we had to pick something. I'm going with Sound of Metal number 2.
All right. Todd, I think you had it number 4.
Yeah. Number 4. Yeah. I mean, I echo everything Adam said. I think it's the most interesting part is like, it's about him like trying to hold on to like some semblance of his life. Like he's trying to hold on to his girlfriend, about his music, about his pride. And like everything is thrown into this upheaval when he's put in that rehab clinic, and you could see it on his face, and you could just feel it. And yeah, Paul Raci should be winning Best Supporting Actor. I think Olivia Cook and Riz Ahmed both should be nominated as well. I think it's interesting, like, especially Paul Raci. It's like a completely new face is just sweeping awards season, and
Yeah,
he is that good. And the sound design, as Adam was saying, is just sensational. And the more you hear about how they actually did it, makes it even that much more astonishing. And it's another debut film, which I think is crazy because it's just a stunner. Like, I think it could be my number one in time the more I watch it. But yeah right now I have it number 4.
Yeah,
So-
I had it number 3, and it's so grounded and like you guys said, authentic. It's just a beautiful film, and the performance Riz Ahmed is able to give in this that is just outstanding, and how they're able to in the production of this get into his head and let you hear what he hears is just remarkable. And I think I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. If you've seen Sound of Metal and you liked it, a great companion piece for this is a documentary that was nominated for Best Documentary in 2000 called Sound and Fury, which looks at a family of deaf people that is looking into the implants that Riz Ahmed gets in this, and almost like the ostriches. They're ostracized. I'll say it that way, from the rest of the deaf community because they feel like the deaf community is saying that we're not good enough for you, basically. And so it's a fascinating documentary that looks at and discusses what is going on with the Riz Ahmed character in this. I'd watched it earlier in the year as part of my watch all the Oscar nominees thing. And I'm so glad I watched that before I watched Sound of Metal, because it really informed me on what was actually going on in that movie and really helped define that movie for me a little bit more.
Yeah, so I did not Merlot The Sound of Metal because it is not higher on my list. It is my number 2 of the year. So
well, there you go. And you were next to talk about it. So keep going.
Well, and I thought that it was more appropriate that Adam talk about it first because he had seen the movie and he sent me a text that said how awesome it is. I'd never really heard of this movie. I think when we had even said we were going to review it, I'm like, what is this? And 10 minutes into the movie, I thought, what is this? What's going on here? What a movie. This is why we go to movies. We go to movies to live other people's lives, to see what the world is like through their perspective. I'm not a rock musician. I'm not someone who's part of the deaf community. I'm not an addict. I'm not, in a relationship in the way that the Riz Ahmed character is in this movie with his girlfriend, Olivia Cook, who's also great in this movie, by the way, not getting the attention that she deserves.
Absolutely.
But when you watch this movie, you learn this guy's life very quickly. He is a multi-dimensional character. He resists, going to the ear doctor. He resists so much in this movie, and so much of what his resistance is from his addiction. And the movie is not heavy-handed in that way at all. A lesser filmmaker would have indulged in a scene of relapse, for example, or flashbacks, or some sort of device. And the movie never does that because, as a movie about addiction, it knows that it's about someone who is trying to remove themselves from that. And I think it's genuinely powerful stuff. Echoing everything you guys said, it's why we go to the movies. I mean, to live other people's lives, to see the world through their perspective. And this movie just does it tastefully and beautifully. And it can't speak higher.
So just to throw it out there, Sound and Fury is a $3.99 rental on Apple TV, a $7.99 buy. If any of you are interested, I found it at my local library. You could probably find a DVD of it there.
I feel like we might know what the consensus Almost Sideways number 1 of the year is after talking about this. But
all four of us.
I mean,
all four of us had it.
All right. Well, I think I'm next here for number 2, since Zach didn't stop Adam from talking about it. So number 2 on my list. All right. So it's 2020. The rules don't really apply. I don't even know if the rules applied, if this would still pop up on my list. It probably would. For a while, I thought it was going to be my number 1, and I was going to kind of be like apologetic about it being my number 1. because in a similar way that I was apologetic about OJ Made in America being my number one, it's like, okay, I know it's kind of cheating, but I have to count it. And if I count it, it's up there. But it ended up being my number two. And it is something that I think I was more obsessed with than any other movie this year. And it is Alexander Hamilton. His name is Alexander Hamilton. Hamilton, my number two. I mean, how do you not love Hamilton, right? I mean, it is the genius of Lin-Manuel Miranda, and the genius really. And this is one of the reasons why I'm not that sorry about it being on my list, is because the filmmaking that they were able to do in putting this together and making it a compelling film, and filming it and presenting it in a way that it was meant to be seen, was amazing. And the editing work that was done on this was awesome. They took 3 separate performances, live performances, and videoed it from different areas, and then took an entire day to get some of the close-ups and some of the shots they missed, and edited it all together to make it feel like you're watching one combined live performance. It is remarkable. The music is undeniable. The performances, obviously, from what the Tonys did, they gave I think 3 different actors Tony Awards. It won Best Musical. It's probably going to be all over the Golden Globes. Who knows if it'll sneak into any Oscar conversations? But the power of Hamilton, the emotion of Hamilton, the amazing lyrical work that Lin-Manuel Miranda was able to do with Hamilton, it's undeniable. And then add on top of that the editing work that was done to make this a legit movie and make it feel as great as it did watching it. I mean, this is a movie I could watch more than almost any other movie I've ever seen. And it's on my list because of it. So number 2, Hamilton.
Nice. Good stuff. I just got your number 1. I got it picked.
So I don't consider Hamilton a movie. I do not list it as one of my 75 movies I saw this year. But I echo everything Terry says about it. It is a great experience. Although I can't honestly say, I don't think I've ever sat down and watched it from beginning to end. I've only seen it in pieces. But yeah, it's cool. And the rules don't apply in 2020. So more power to you, Terry.
Well, I mean, like I said, it's kind of OJ Made in America made my list, and it was number 1 on my list. And I didn't sit down and watch that all in one sitting. But it was being considered as a movie, and so it has to be considered as a movie. And I don't think
Hamilton's eligible for Oscars, though. It's eligible for Golden Globes.
Well, I think it is eligible for Oscars. It was supposed to have a theatrical run at some point, and they fast-tracked it and put it on Disney Plus instead. Like sometime like summer 2021, it was going to get a theatrical release.
I think Disney should win a Nobel Prize, because think of how many lives were saved by people staying inside their house all summer long and watching Hamilton. Although evidently not that many people's lives were saved, unfortunately. But I'm sure a few were. And making it 3 hours long, brilliant move in the COVID era. Just stay home, man. Just watch Hamilton on repeat.
Definitely the movie I watched more than anything else this year. It's been a few months since I've watched it. But the month it came out, I probably watched it like 10 or 12 times, partially because my kids were obsessed with it too.
That's pretty cool. With that trade-off of Hamilton, we did get Artemis Fowl, which was not a good Disney Plus movie. So.
Well, there is that. There is that. All right. Well, Zach already gave his number 2, so we are moving into number 1. Todd.
All right, my number 1. I reviewed it on the podcast maybe like 6 months ago. I said it was the best movie I'd seen so far in 2020, and it was never overtaken. It is Blue Story, directed by Rapman or Andrew Onwubalu. Nice. It is available on Prime, Hulu, and Epix. It is an adaptation of his YouTube series about a friendship of 2 black youths in London on different sides of the tracks. You have Timmy, who is a nice kid from Deptford, but he goes to school in Peckham, where he becomes best friends with Marco, who is more of like a troubled streetwise kid, and their loyalties are tested when a gang war kind of breaks out between the 2 neighborhoods. The movie is put together by inserting raps between the chapters, which fill in the blanks, and they are done with a just undeniable passion and emotion, similar to almost like Blind Spotting or something. All the young actors are incredible. Actually, Steve McQueen stole like 5 actors from this for Small Axe. Like every episode in Small Axe, I was like, oh, there's Killian, there's Hakeem, and look, there's Marco. Like, and I can't blame him because these are the future leading men and women of the UK, and it's obvious watching the movie. They are all incredible. I watched it twice just to make sure I wasn't going crazy because the movie is an absolute killer. It's just a blistering masterpiece. It's an assault on your emotions and on your senses, and it is by a reasonably wide margin the best film of 2020 until I see Nomadland.
I like your disclaimer there. That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I watched
it.
it.
Almost
I watched
sideways.
it last week. Oh, go ahead.
No. It's not. It was not a funny joke. It was not going to be funny. Go ahead.
Now it's been built up. It's like Pulp Fiction. The joke has been built up. Well, I was just going to say, I think Blue Story is really good too. I watched it because I knew Todd liked it so much. It's not on my top 10, but it is a really watchable movie, and it has a sort of energy that feels almost like you're. I think the comparisons of Ratman to like Martin Scorsese's in the 70s, not terrible comparisons. Like there is a lot of fluid camera movement in this movie. There's this kind of rap chorus to it that's really cool. And it doesn't feel like Chirac. I mean, it feels much more organic in a way and more appropriate to the story. And I thought the story was a little predictable. That was maybe my biggest issue with it. But I did like how the characters evolved and did sometimes do some surprising things. And yeah, it's definitely a cool experience.
Nice.
Right. All right.
It's a
Still need
Todd
to
movie
watch
for
that
sure.
one. Well, that explains it.
What did he say?
I said that explains it.
Well, no, what did he say?
It's
That
a
it was
Todd,
a
it's a Todd
Todd.
movie.
Oh, it's a
It,
Todd.
ha- it has some alpha dog in its DNA for sure.
Yeah. Well, his next movie, he's remaking A Prophet, which will.
Oh,
should be
perfect.
Nice.
All right. Adam, number 1.
All right, number 1. Oh my goodness, this is the movie I was really excited to watch. If you guys were kind of surprised that I put this director's film in one of my top 10s of the decade, and that is Thomas Vinterberg's Another Round. Thomas Vinterberg did The Hunt, and Another Round follows this group of 4 friends, and they do a social experiment where they have to keep their blood alcohol level at a certain point to go through the day. And they can only drink during working hours. This is a fascinating film. I enjoyed this film so much. And again, another one movie that really kind of felt like these 4 guys were just kind of going through life, just floating by. And it felt like another film that felt really authentic to me. And I think I just really love Mads Mikkelsen and everything he does, other than Polar, which was not really a good movie.
Horrible.
Oh wait, I should probably do this too. Anyway, but Mads Mikkelsen.
I was gonna say you're kind of lacking on the switchboard there, Adam.
There we go.
Hit the clicker.
Yeah, I get the clicker. But yeah, I really loved Another Round. I was hearing so many great things about this, and this one definitely could be the front runner of international films. And I think Mads Mikkelsen, needs to get an Oscar nomination at some point. I'm not quite, or another one, or just get more recognition because he's fantastic and everything. But it follows Thomas Bo Larsen, Lars Rathen, and Magnus Malling. And they're all fantastic friends, and seeing the slowly de-evolution of this experiment play out through the screen, and how every relationship that happens with these characters with their drinking kind of slowly breaks down or kind of evolves into something differently than they were thinking. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It has more of an interesting ending to it that is maybe a little more, put a smile on my face, which made it fun. But seeing these characters progress through the film was just really fascinating, and something that I wanted to watch this movie for so long, and it paid off and everything. I'm really needing to watch more of this guy's films because I love The Hunt, and I think he connects with me somehow in his storytelling that it just makes me really love his films. So I definitely have to go check out more of Thomas Vinterberg's movies. So yeah, Another Round, number 1.
Let's have another round tonight. Sorry.
Tie it all together there. Yeah, this is another one that was on my list of what I wanted to try and catch this week and didn't quite get to. So hopefully in the next week or two, I hit up those couple movies that are on lists that I wanted to see.
Oh yeah, you should. It's really good. Like it's great. It's great. I think everyone should like it anyway.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. So number one on my list has kind of been spoiled because I merlot it and it hasn't popped up yet. So here we are. Number one on my list, Promising Young Woman. We just talked about it. I think it was just last week. And it turned out being my number one of the year. And it was going to take something really special to dethrone Hamilton from that spot. And this was that. I haven't stopped thinking about it since I watched it. It just kind of gets into your head and you can't get rid of it. Carey Mulligan gives one of the best performances of the year. The story is told in such an original way, and the way she kind of navigates her way through the script and the plot is just magnificent. Wouldn't it be great if on Oscar Sunday we end up with Riz Ahmed and Carey Mulligan winning Oscars? I mean, wouldn't that just be like the ideal? It's not going to happen, but it would just be awesome. I love this movie and I love everything about it. Like I said, we just talked about it last week, but it just completely floored me, and yeah, I haven't stopped thinking about it. It is the one movie I spent $20 on during all of this to rent, and I find it funny that the only movie Todd spent that on and the only movie I spent that on both ended up in our top fives. So there you go. Number one, Promising Young Woman.
Sweet. I will take it over. This was my number 3. I spent $20 on it as well, but I also did that for a couple other movies, which did not make my top 10 all the time. But anyway, Promising Young Woman was a very cool, sexy film. I really love this movie as well. I kind of really love these revenge stories, but it wasn't really. We didn't get the brutality like I thought it was. But it also was very like kind of a subtle, and you kind of had to like think about what she was actually doing. But it was actually really cool. I loved Carey Mulligan in this movie. Another film, like again what Terry said, I kept on thinking about it, really enjoyed it, and I think the style of this film really kind of just pushed it up there for me. And I hearing so many great things about this. One of the better performances of the year from Carey Mulligan. I would love to see her get some recognition. I know there was some conversation on the last podcast you guys did, if she gets in, if she doesn't get in, but all valid points you guys made. But for me, Promising Young Woman was a super enjoyable, fun time watching this film. And again, it's this kind of topic of film is a little hard for like my wife to watch at times because based off some of the elements that are revealed throughout this movie, but this film doesn't really show too much. It's implied, and she was able to really enjoy this movie as well and loved it maybe even more than I did. So that's really speaks kind of testament to how this filmmaker was able to push this narrative through. And Promising Young Woman, just a really fun time at the movie. So, and this actually, if you guys are listening to this whenever this drops, this actually is an audio clip on YouTube now. So make sure you guys check it out and check out the episode of the podcast too. So boom, boom.
And something you mentioned that I really loved about it is how it doesn't show much. I love movies that talk about what's going on, but don't feel like they need to actually show it for the just to throw it out there and be overly graphic in that way. The fact that it's all kind of hidden and mentioned, it still has the same power and almost more power because of it. And it makes what happens in the ending that much more shocking.
Yeah, and I get the ending not necessarily quote unquote making sense, but I didn't care. I still really enjoyed how everything was wrapped up, and it was great to see all these characters, really likable characters, not be good guys, like especially Smith, like being this totally scumbag guy. And he will always be Smith. So that's how I'll refer to him. So, but Bo Burnham is another one. We didn't mention him today, but he was great in this movie too. And hey, Paris Hilton, I definitely downloaded that song again after hearing that supermarket. One of the best scenes of 2020, I think.
Yeah, who wants to go sing in a pharmacy now? Is that going to be a thing?
Seriously,
we should do it, man. We should do it.
I will say, like, the debate between Todd and Zach on which 3-star review was the correct 3-star review was one of our best debates we've had on the podcast.
Yeah, and I try to keep as much of that in the clip as possible too.
I'm not even really sure what we disagreed on, but I think it was just everything.
You disagreed on everything, but still like it the exact same amount.
Yeah, I mean it's a good movie. You know, it's certainly watchable. It's I guess surprising and unpredictable in some ways. I think Carey Mulligan is the best part of it, and I don't know. I could see her beating out Frances McDormand at the Oscars. I think she's going to get a nomination, and she's done a lot of great work over the years. This is not a role that you would maybe expect her to take, but at this point of her career, it's a really interesting one, and she's by far the best part of the movie. I wish she had had a slightly more, tuned-in screenplay, but her scenes are, she's great. She has a great presence on screen.
All right, Zach. Number 1.
Adam was going to add something. I'm curious.
Oh no! A question to Todd: is this because film independent? Is this something you would vote for, Todd? Is this a performance, Carey Mulligan?
Well, is it? What was it all nominated for? I mean,
no, I'm just saying Carey Mulligan's performance specifically.
Would it be my number 1 choice in the category?
Yeah, would you vote for Carey Mulligan, or was it another one? I know we haven't seen Nomadland.
Well, I mean, yeah. I don't know. I mean, Viola Davis is still right up there too. I mean, it's right, and that category is actually really stacked.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Anyway, we'll talk about that later. But anyway, wanted to ask.
So we are referencing Todd and Adam are both now members of Film Independent and get a vote on the Independent Spirit Awards. So that's what they're talking about here.
We're going to make a podcast episode for that too. We're making a podcast episode. What we're voting for.
They get screeners. They get to see stuff ahead of time to try and help them vote on the Independent Spirit Awards, which is just really cool. Anyways, that's what they're talking about. Last one, Zach, number 1.
Well, that's good because my number 1 is, I believe, also nominated for several Independent Spirit Awards. It is the movie that I also named at our midway point, my favorite movie of the year. I don't think that's ever happened before, where the midway movie ended up being my number 1 movie. Although I do think we had a pretty good second half of the year 2020, but I think I pretty much knew when I saw this movie it was going to be high on my list. And that movie is Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always, which I believe was Adam's number 9.
Okay, hold on.
You gets the title right.
You guaranteed that Tiger Tail was going to be on your top 10 of the year when we reviewed that shit.
Well, okay, I'm not the most consistent person in the world, but Tiger Tail was my number 11, if anyone's interested. But it is not my number 1 movie of the year.
Zach, prone to hyperbole.
I've been told that before. I know Adam liked Tiger Tail, but we're not talking about Tiger Tail. We're talking about Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always, which is Eliza Hittman's movie, which is getting some well-deserved Oscar buzz. It tells the story of 17-year-old Autumn, who lives in Pennsylvania. Not 17-year-old Adam from Washington, but that would make an interesting movie too. I don't know. I would say I would never, rarely, sometimes see that movie. But Autumn is pregnant at the beginning of the movie, and it kind of the first 30 minutes of the movie are not too dissimilar to Juno, except it's not funny. And eventually she seeks out her cousin Skylar, or maybe the cousin seeks her out, and they decide to plot this scheme to go to New York, where abortion laws are much less restrictive. And so, their family is not aware of it. And it's really about their journey. And it's not maybe a New York you would expect. It's a New York that they're always in transit. They're like sleeping in the bus station, and they don't really have a place to go at night. They hang out at the mall and the local arcade. The title gets its name from this riveting sequence where Sidney Flanigan as Autumn appears on screen in like a 5-minute unbroken take, which is, I think, the best acting of the year. And it's a movie that manages to be personal about these characters and their evolution and their journey, but also very much about systems and institutions of oppression and patriarchy. These are the kind of movies I like. I mean, in the sense that, it's not a movie that's overtly trying to have a political message, but you can insinuate the message from everything that you're seeing on screen and what these characters have to go through. I love the opening sequence of this movie, which is Autumn singing a song. I think it tells you everything you need to know about the movie. It's, I think, one of the best opening sequences of any movie of the last few years. And the movie packs a powerful punch in the way that it is subtle, and how you go on this journey with these characters. And you would again, a lesser filmmaker would have indulged a bit, maybe like kind of I was saying about Sound of Metal, they would have made it more sensationalized or theatrical or melodramatic. But really, it's even the moments of banality that these characters have is really kind of profound. And the performances by Sidney Flanigan and Talia Ryder, they would be my votes for Best Actress and Best Supporting Actress. Eliza Hittman is a crazy talented filmmaker. I can't wait to see how her career develops and what trajectory she goes. And this movie affected me like no other movie this year. It's riveting. I know Terry was a fan of it too, and Todd as well. But shame on you guys for not having it on your list. But it's a great movie that hopefully Oscars will remember. But usually my number one movies get pretty ignored by the Oscars. But maybe there's a chance this year with COVID. So who knows?
It's definitely in my honorable mentions. It just missed my list, and it is a remarkable movie, and yeah, it definitely is one that sticks with you after you see it for sure.
Yeah, this was my number 9 film, and I was kind of crazy how sometimes multiple films, similar subject matter, come out the same year. An HBO movie came out shortly after this one called Unpregnant, which similar kind of stuff, but that one's not worthy of watching. This one, Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always, definitely packs a punch there. It's another film that really feels like authentic, and I think that's what this year was. It just there was a lot of films that really felt like a real, like you're watching real events play out on screen, and seeing these characters take this journey together was just really something about it. Just like brought emotions to you, and definitely one of the best performances and scenes played out with the title of the movie. That whole scene, man, just brought me, wrecked me as well. And this is a movie that definitely a lot of people should watch. That I feel like it's definitely going to be under the radar. I kind of feel like the same way with like another movie, Sound of Metal. It's just a lot of these little smaller films just under the radar, but I'm glad that we're talking about them and they're worth remembering because how powerful they are. So Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always did fall at number 9, and it definitely deserves maybe be higher on my list, but this is one I'll definitely have to rewatch again because I just remember the experience being so powerful that it made me kind of not want to watch it again because I'm not ready to take that emotional journey once more quite yet. So
yeah, I love the movie too. It was my number 21 of the year, and I think Talia Ryder is the highlight of the movie. I think it's interesting because that's a movie that has a premise that easily could have been like Before Sunrise or something. They could have just been like hanging out all night or something, but they can't because New York is gross. Like you can't stay outside because the city is disgusting. They can't get shelter because there's way too many homeless people and they're already taken. They can't hang on the subway because they're worried about getting raped. Like this is an indictment of leadership of New York, which I think is really interesting as well.
Yeah, that's definitely a different way to kind of like dissect that film. That's actually great points right there.
Yeah, and I think some people are going to go into this movie thinking it's a movie about abortion or it's about a political or social issue. And the truth is, I think regardless of anyone's stance on abortion or anyone's experiences with it, it's a movie that's ultimately kind of like what Adam is saying about these two characters that you get to know really well over the course of the movie. Two teenage characters who are still in like the stages of their learning about the world. And they're not like smart Alex like Juno is, I mean, they're not world weary already. Like they are very unsure of themselves, and like you watch, Sidney Flanigan give that like music performance with the song "He's Got the Power" at the very beginning of the movie, and it's like that is a bold gesture that she makes. There's another scene in the movie where she sings later, and it just tells you a lot about the character. And both of them are just fascinating teenagers that you want to know more about. And I think that's credit to the writing. It's also just credit to the performances and what both actors bring to them.
All right. Good. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, let's get into some honorable mentions quick before we wrap this thing up. Todd, what are your honorable mentions?
All right. So basically my 11 through 15, I have The Wolf of Snow Hollow, which is the like cop werewolf movie by Jim Cummings, which is just awesome. My number 12 was Pieces of a Woman. My number 13 was a documentary that I really loved called Rewind. Number 14 is Strummer that Zach talked about. And my number 15 is Deerskin, which is the movie by Quentin Dupieux, who's the guy who did Rubber. this is like a really weird movie with Jean Dujardin, and Deerskin is definitely worth checking out. I think it's streaming some places, but
Jean Dujardin with the guy who did Rubber. Really?
yeah.
Wow, that
Crazy.
sounds fun.
Yeah, it's freaking awesome sounding.
All right, Adam.
All right, so my honorable mention, because 2020 is just a crazy year, so a lot of stuff, doesn't count. So some limited series. There's one limited series I really wanted to talk about. Oh man, what's the title? It's the Aaron Hernandez documentary on Netflix. That was
Okay.
Inside the Mind of Aaron Hernandez. That was a really just like interesting take and structure, and also McMillions, which was an HBO like McDonald's, like they rigged the Monopoly game. Very fascinating documentary series for both of those. But we're talking about movies. Number 11 for me was The 40-Year-Old Virgin, just missing out. Number 12 was Monsoon with Henry Golding, which is a very fascinating journey back to Vietnam film, which I really love that one. 13 was Wolf Walker's 14 Tiger Tail, which we Zach and I both reviewed on. Well, yeah, actually we all reviewed, but Zach and I really liked a lot. And number 15 was Yes, God, Yes, which is actually streaming on Netflix. It's actually really good. And I want to throw out Rent-A-Pal, which was a film that the director actually retweeted my like that I said that was a really good film. So you guys should check it out. It's a really kind of creepy horror film about like about online. It's like online dating, but before online, it was like VHS dating. And also, I'll throw out Sonic the Hedgehog, which was nowhere nearing to be on my top 10, but it was the last film I was able to see in theaters with my dad, and it was just one of those fun family experiences. So I wanted to mention out and give a shout out to Sonic the Hedgehog. So really fun time there. So
That movie was so much fun.
it's way better than it should be.
Yes, so much better than it should be. Absolutely, especially after the production hell it went through trying to get to the screen.
Yeah, let's redo the whole entire CGI with the hedgehog. Let's do it before it comes out. Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Well, my honorable mention number 11 was Mangrove, which Zach talked about. Number 12 was a film that was nominated for international film last year, and that's Corpus Christi, about an escaped prisoner that ends up masquerading as a priest. Fascinating film. Number 13, Defy Bloods by Spike Lee. Really cool. Number 14, Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always. And number 15, Adam just mentioned it, The 40-Year-Old Virgin. Rada Blank.
Rada Blank. Oh, yeah. Poverty porn. Okay.
My number 11 was Tiger Tail, which I knew I was going to get shit for because I didn't put it on my top 10. I apologize. It's still a really good movie, though. Alan Yang is really, really talented. Number 12 is The 24th by a friend of the podcast, Kevin Wilmot, which depicts the...
Is he, though?
I think we can call him a friend of the podcast.
Hey, man, I'm still waiting.
Connections.
Hey, we need to get the interview going.
Well, he's busy. I mean, he did the Five Bloods and the 24th, and he's doing other stuff. Like the guy's busy. I mean, I do see him every once in a while, though. I have to say, shout out to LFK. Anyway, it is about the Houston riot in 1917, a big race riot by an all-black infantry. Again, like Mangrove, another episode of history that doesn't get a lot of attention. Very much worth checking out. Number 13 is 7500, which we reviewed on this podcast. No one liked it except for me. But hey, I think JGL kicks some ass in that movie. He's not a Streisand like Matt Damon, and he is pretty awesome. And he's a pilot who fends off a hijacking. Number 14 is Driveways by the filmmaker Andrew Ann, the story of a mother and son who go to the mother's sister's house to clean it out, and they befriend this elderly neighbor, played by Brian Dennehy in his last performance. And number 15 is Young Ahmed by the Dardenne brothers, because I think I'm contractually obligated to put the Dardenne brothers, every movie they make, somewhere in my top list. This is not one of their best movies, but it is a really interesting movie about a young Muslim teenager in Belgium who basically gets sort of indoctrinated and develops these pretty extremist views about radical Islam. I would also say, this didn't make my honorable mentions per se, but I did want to shout out The Way Back, the Ben Affleck movie, because it was the last movie I saw in theaters. It was March 11th, and I really liked it. And I always thought all year that I was going to put it on my top 10 list just to make a statement about going to movies. But it is a movie that has stuck with me. Even it's not a great movie, but in a way it was sort of the perfect last movie to see in theaters because it wasn't brilliant, but but it was a great experience at the movies, and I will now forever associate that movie with COVID, which is not the point of that movie, but whatever.
I'll throw it out there then too. My last trip to the movies, I did a double feature of Emma and The Way Back. And yeah, Emma was the better of the two movies. Way Back's good, but Emma's really good.
I think mine was Impractical Jokers, the movie.
Nice. I remember mine. Mine was a double feature of Birds of Prey with Bad Boys for Life.
Bad Boys for Life, #1 at the box office for the year.
Hell yeah.
But Todd's been back to the theaters. Has anyone else been back? I haven't.
Oh, no, I totally forgot. I did go back to the theaters. I went to see Freaky. I totally forgot about that. Freaky with Vince Vaughn.
Oh yeah, well, I went back
did see that.
at least a handful of times since then, but like before, like the 4-month or so hiatus,
Yeah.
Yeah, theaters never opened here.
They're closed again, so yeah, we're not for a while.
All right, well, let's go over some overall totals here. So this is really interesting. So there are 31 movies represented on our top 10s. This is the most ever. We've calculated this all the way back to 1970 of finding out what our top 10s are. Never have we had 31 movies represented in all of our top 10s. This is the most ever. The closest before this was 1987 when 30 films were represented in our top 10s. There were only 6 overlaps. This is the most since 1980, or the least since 1985, when there were also 6, and then I think in 1981 or 1980 there were 4. Other than that, we've always had more. There's some years where we've had 6 that were on 3 lists, which just shows how crazy this year has been. Okay, so with all that said, here is our overall top 5 of the year. I take into account where everyone placed it and how many overlaps it had. So number 5 is Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always.
Good.
Number 4 is A Son. Number 3, Promising Young Woman. Number 2, Palm Springs. And number 1, Sound of Metal.
Oh, that's an awesome
That
top
is
5.
such a crazy top 5. I love it.
Would never have guessed that when the year started. Would never have guessed that.
All right. Well, let's wrap this up with a quote of the day. And Todd, let's go to you first.
All right, my quote comes from a movie I just watched this week that was nominated for a Spirit Award for Best First Screenplay. It is a quote by Katie Findlay, who plays Rory in Straight Up. And she says, "Hey, you know that saying, shoot for the moon, even if you'll miss, you'll land among the stars? I did some research, and apparently the closest star, excluding our sun, is still 4 light years away from Earth. So if you miss the moon, you don't land on anything. You just float aimlessly in space until you die." And that kind of describes this podcast.
I love that. That's amazing. All right, Adam, what do you got?
All right, so mine is not from a film this year, but it kind of describes the year. It's from Burn After Reading. It's you got CIA superior and Chad Feldheimer talking, and it's a CIA superior. What did we learn, Palmer? I don't know, sir. I don't effing know either. I guess we learned not to do it again. Yes, sir. I'm effed if I know what we did. Yeah, that's pretty much how the year is described, I think. We have no idea what happened, but we got through it, and we're here. So, yeah, that's my quote of the day.
I thought you were going to go with let me know when, I don't know, when it makes sense.
Yeah, that
would describe the year, too.
But I couldn't find that on Rotten Tomatoes, so I was just like, this is close enough.
All right, well, my quote of the day comes from a film that I've mentioned that I watched this week. It is the one and only Tenet. It comes in one of the final scenes. Robert Pattinson looks back at John David Washington longingly and says, "I'll see you in the beginning, friend." And that's like the climactic like quotable line to end the movie. And I was debating to go with that or "I am the protagonist," because your main character, like the plot of the movie is determining whether the main character is the main character or not. Like he's trying to decide if he's the main character of the movie. Am I the protagonist? I'm the protagonist. Yeah. That's the movie. Yeah. It's on your top 10, Adam.
So the real question is, could you understand that line? Like, could you decipher it, or was the audio so bad that you couldn't
Oh
hear
yeah,
it?
that's the other thing is the sound design was horrible. So yeah, you can understand this one, but
I'm excited
right.
for when Tenet beats Sound of Metal for best sound design.
I
at the
know, right?
Oscars.
Oh my god! Hey, I watched this on my phone. How Christopher Nolan wanted me to watch it. Okay, that was
All
like
right.
the film Twitter quote of the year. Go ahead.
Zach, I don't know why, but I'm leaving you the last word.
So my quote of the day comes from Soul, which was on, I think, 2 of our lists, and it comes from the character Joe, and he says, "Music is all I think about. From the moment I wake up in the morning to the moment I fall asleep at night, I was born to play. It's my reason for living." And I feel like that's the way we feel about movies, and maybe it's not the way we feel about each other or this podcast, but we're not that far off. So, like Joe, we're, just staying passionate about movies, even though a few of us are now teachers and maybe not voting members of the Independent Spirit Award. Okay?
I know, right?
But,
I know.
we still dream. So yeah, that's all good.
I think this might be the first time where I accurately picked who should have gone last, because that's an awesome way to end this. So with that, we're going to bring this podcast to a close. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll be back at you next week with some more content. Until then, have fun watching movies, and we'll catch you on the flip side.
Boom.